The audible world is settling into the depths. Allow your breath now to follow these slow, unfolding words, sinking deeper, bit by bit, into the still water. This soundscape will completely sever the draining impulse to prove yourself to the world, becoming the final key to rebuilding your inner energy. These ancient frequencies you are about to hear have already helped countless souls exhausted from the quicksand of human relationships and the endless tossing in the deep night to reclaim a long-lost centerdines. In this long, unfolding auditory journey, you will meet the Zen master who, when reviled by an entire town, replied with only 3 words. The tea master who, with just a cup of tea, disarmed a master swordsman. You will see the empty boat that comes crashing through the fog, and the sage who, before a gathering of 10,000, simply held up a flower and smiled. Even if you can never stop yourself from speaking up to refute a misunderstanding, even if you are terrified of sudden silence and feel you must fill it with words, even if every deep breathing technique and emotional control method you've tried before has failed you, please rest assured, this will still work, because here, there is nothing you need to strive for. In the Vimamakirti Sutra lies a piece of ancient wisdom, sleeping for 1,000 years, silent word, lessness. This is the non-dual Dharma gate. Change is already unfolding in this wordlessness. Now, let yourself get a little more comfortable. You may lie down, or nestle into a soft corner. Take a deep, slow breath in, and with a long, gentle sigh, let it all go. Your rest begins here. Imagine yourself within an old, wooden Japanese house, sitting quietly on a deep, dark wooden veranda that extends outwards in NAWA. Sky is as dark as an underexposed frame of vintage film. The rush, granular texture diffusing through the air. Before you stretches an unending night rain. Rainwater gathers along the slate-gray aisles, drawing itself into long, silver threads before falling, heavy and muffled, onto the moss-covered stone slabs below. The entire world has had its brightness and saturation dialed down, revealing a high contrast, low-key aesthetic of deep shadows. Behind you is a dimly lit room, where only a single white candle, nearly burnt to its end, flickers faintly in the corner. The amber glow of the candle stretches your shadow, long and wavering, across the paper screen sliding doors. The air is thick with the mellow, earthy scent of aged wood absorbing moisture, mingled with the faint, slightly bitter trace of spent incense. Beyond this, all that remains between heaven and earth is the sound of rain. This boundless white noise, like a thick layer of soundproof batting, has completely cut off that noisy, impatient, modern world that always demands your response, tuned into your body, just as it is now. Is your jaw still held with a subtle tightness? Is the root of your tongue still pressed against the roof of your mouth? Is the very back of your brain still whirring like an overworked old projector, endlessly replaying a conversation from earlier today? That colleague who made a snide remark in the meeting, that reply on social media that made you feel ignored, or that misunderstanding that made you feel you had to explain yourself, to fight back. Immediately, you are so tired. You are always trying, in every single human interaction, to prove your worth, to prove your innocence, to prove that you are smart enough, agreeable enough. Every explanation you offer, every fake laugh you muster to smooth the atmosphere, is wildly draining the vital energy from the deepest well of your being. Your energy is like a leaking vessel, rapidly spilling out through the corners of your mouth, desperate to speak. But right now, in this pattering rain, in this flickering, dim candlelight, you can set down that heavy, heavy burden called self-justification. Let it fall, with a solid, satisfying weight, onto the damp wooden floor. Listen. Within the sound of rain, there seems to come the sound of footsteps. From a time long, long ago, in that ancient Japanese village, perpetually shrouded in mist and drenched in the same weary rain, there stood a dilapidated Zen temple. The master of this temple was called Hakuin. Hakuin's life was like the rain beyond this veranda, monotonous, repetitive, utterly without waves, yet it carried an unmovable weight. The villagers regarded him as a living saint. And every day, countless people crossed his worn threshold just to hear a single sentence of his profound wisdom. Yet, worldly fame is often a single entity with its shadow. Truin. In the village lived an exceedingly wealthy merchant. He had a beautiful daughter, named Mina. That late autumn, Mina's belly began to grow, day by day. In that time of rigid moral codes, an unmarried pregnancy was a capital offense that would bring unspeakable shame upon the entire family. In a blind rage, the merchant drew his katana, pressing its tip to his daughter's throat, demanding the name of the man. In her extremity of fear and despair, to protect the poor young man with no background, no status, whom she secretly loved, Mina cried out, shutting her eyes tight and throwing out a name that everyone in the village knew, a name that no one would dare to easily kill. It's Master Hakuin, up on the mountain. You can imagine that twilight, the sky like cold iron, a fierce wind tearing at the one curtain of the temple door, whipping icy rain through the air. Torches of rage formed a blinding dragon of fire winding up the dark mountain path. The merchant, leading a mob of villagers, those who just yesterday bowed to Hakuin in deep reverence, now faces twisted with contempt, kicked open the temple's flimsy wooden door. They took the newborn baby, still wailing helplessly, and like discarding a piece of filthy trash, hurled him brutally at Hakuin's feet. The firelight danced violently across Hakuin's wrinkled face, illuminating the spit of anger and the venomous curses aimed at him. You hypocrite hiding behind a monk's robe. I am a beast, a deceiver worse than an animal. Get out of our village. If this were you, if you were facing this monumental injustice, enough to utterly destroy your reputation and your entire life, what would you do? Your heart would pound wildly. Your blood would boil. Your throat would let out a desperate scream. You would draw upon every word you had ever learned to defend yourself. You would grab every single person's hand to swear your innocence. You would demand confrontation. You would rage against the unfairness of the world. You would let your energy erupt like a bursting dam, trying desperately to extinguish the fire before you. But Hakuin did not. Light and shadow played slowly across his eyelids, facing this towering rage, this slander capable of destroying a lifetime of pure reputation. The thin, aged man simply looked down, casting a brief glance at the tiny, terrified, wailing life on the ground. He did not frown. He did not defend himself. There was not the slightest trickle of emotion. He just uttered 3 words, in a voice so flat, so quiet it was almost a whisper. Is that so? No rhetorical question. No exclamation, just 4 impossibly calm syllables. Is that so? The moment these 4 syllables left his lips, it was as if the angry villagers had swung their fists full force into a bottomless bit of cotton. Hakuin bent down, and with those rough, calloused hands, gently picked up the baby from the ground, softly patting the swaddling cloth. Then, under the stunned, contemptuous gaze of the mob, he turned and walked back into the dark interior of the temple. Outside the door, the endless curses and the rain. Inside the door, utter stillness. In the years that followed, Hakuin became a complete and utter laughingstock. The once revered saint became a crazy old man, carrying a baby door to door through wind and snow, begging for milk. Every time a door was opened, he was met with cold stares, mocking laughter, and even a basin of cold water thrown in his face. Still, he said not a word. He just lowered his head, shielded the child in his arms, and endured everything in silence. His reputation was completely ground to dust. His life was utterly destroyed. But, strangely, the tranquility that emanated from him only grew deeper, and deeper, and deeper still, deep enough to make people feel afraid. 1 year passed. 2, 3 years. The weight of the lie will, in the end, crush the soul of the liar. The true father died in an accident. Mina, tormented for years by a guilt so immense, finally broke down completely late one night. She knelt before her father, weeping, and told him the truth of that year. The old monk whom the entire village had vilified for 3 whole years was entirely, completely innocent. You can picture the scene once more. The same dilapidated temple, the same merchant and villagers, their faces now etched with crushing guilt. This time, they did not carry torches. They knelt, in groups, in the muddy courtyard, their foreheads pressed deeply into the wet, moss-covered stones, crying bitterly, begging for Hakuin's forgiveness. The merchant, holding a heavy offering of gold with both hands, kowtowed repeatedly, asking to take his grandson back. Facing this belated justice, this finally cleansed injustice, would Hakuin fly into a rage and drive them away? Would he lecture them haughtily on their ignorance? Would he shed tears of long-held grievance? None of this. Hakuin only looked serenely at the people kneeling on the ground. He turned and brought out the child, the healthy, chubby child he had raised for 3 years with his own dignity and heart's blood, and gently placed him back into Mina's hands. He looked at the now empty cloth in his arms. His face still held no sorrow, no joy. Just faintly, just like that rainy night 3 years ago. He breathed out those 3 words. Is that so? Then, he closed his eyes again and returned to his meditation. It was as if these 3 years of slander, humiliation, vindication, and glory were nothing more than a gentle breeze passing by the window, unable to stir even a single fallen leaf within his heart. This is the sheer power of silence. In our real, everyday lives, we are far too easily kidnapped by the judgments of the outside world. A single misunderstanding from someone else can keep us sleepless the entire night, drafting frantic scripts in our heads, planning how we are going to prove ourselves the next day. We always believe that innocence is claimed by the mouth, that dignity is won through a bait. But the story of Zen, Master Hakuin shows us, the way you desperately try to explain yourself is, in fact, very cheap, very draining. When you are desperate to justify yourself, in that very act, validating the other person's attack, you are opening your energy field wide, allowing them to dump their anxiety, their ignorance, and their malice directly onto your land. True centeredings is MMOV ability. It is not interfering with the karma others are creating. The slander is their karma. The anger is their karma. The misunderstanding is their karma. Master Hakuin did not use his own energy to fill the black holes in other people's hearts. He simply built a dam, named silence. He did not explain, because truth does not need to be proven. He did not refute, because falsehood will ultimately devour itself. When you do not catch the emotional dart someone throws at you, that dart will simply trace its path back and lodge itself in the thrower's own heart. Hell. Listen to the sound of rain outside the window. Feel the sensation of water droplets hitting the wooden boards. Let your thoughts, following this irregular, yet profoundly grounding rhythm of the rain, slowly gather back in. Bring your attention to your breath. Feel the air as it flows gently through your nostrils, slowly entering your chest, and then sinking down into your belly, your body. In this moment is an ancient temple, seated deep in the mountains, enveloped in heavy rain. No matter how fiercely the storm rages outside, it cannot dampen the inner sanctuary of your being. Let us perform a deep, intentional energy severance. Bring your awareness to your throat. In modern life, our thoughts accumulate so many words we wanted to say but never spoke, so much impulse to hastily refute. Imagine there is a tight, creed energy bundled there. Now, with your long, deep exhale, imagine this reed energy beginning to melt. Your tongue becomes very soft, resting quietly on the floor of your mouth. Your vocal cords release completely, losing all desire to vibrate. You do not need to explain to anyone why you are tired today. You do not need to prove to anyone that you are a good person. You do not even need to prove to yourself that you are relaxing right now. Breathe in deeply, and with a slow, infinitely drawn-out breath, exhale. Feel the weight of your body. Feel the pull of gravity drawing down on your shoulders, your arms, your spine. You are becoming heavier and heavier, sinking deeper. You feel as if you are sinking to the very bottom of an ancient, forgotten well. Above is the clamorous world, and below is absolute stillness. The candlelight around you seems to grow dimmer. It is a kind of darkness that brings profound reassurance. The play of light and shadow on your eyelids has ceased, leaving behind only a soft, gentle, all-enveloping deep shadow. If, right now, there's still some fixation circling in your mind, if the silhouette of someone who wronged you is still flickering there, do not try to drive them away. Just as Master Hakuin did, address that fixation in your heart with a gentle question, is that so? And then, pay it no more mind. Let that thought be like a raindrop falling into a pond, creating a tiny ripple, before vanishing completely into the deep water. You are reclaiming your sovereignty. You are gathering back, piece by piece, those fragments of energy scattered across various social media apps, various meeting rooms, various human entanglements. You need do nothing at all. You are simply sitting here, on this rain-soaked wooden veranda, listening to the rain. Your breathing has become long and soft. Your heartbeat has become slow and steady. You feel an unprecedented, immense sense of safety, rising from the base of your spine, spreading throughout your entire body. It is an indestructible stillness. You may keep your eyes closed, feeling this stillness flowing slowly through your bloodstream. The sound of rain on the veranda seems to have become even steadier. Every drop of water hitting the moss is infinitely amplified, stretched out. In the corner, that white candle has finally burnt through its very last drop of wax. With the softest, most gentle hiss, the flame extinguishes. A single, slender wisp of blue smoke rises into the darkness, then dissolves into the damp air. Your world has sunk into a profoundly deep, profoundly soft, muted darkness, with no light flickering. Your sense of sight has completely retreated into the background, while your hearing and your sense of touch have become extraordinarily sharp within this darkness. Feel your hands. Where are they resting right now? Are they folded on your abdomen, or lying naturally by your sides? During the long hours of the day, these hands are always in a state of high-tension intervention. They fly across a keyboard, desperately trying to finish a report before a deadline. They anxiously swipe and delete on a phone screen, trying to craft the perfect explanation to send to someone who might have misunderstood you. They grip the steering wheel tightly, trying to find a faster route through the choked traffic. Your hands, your body, and even your brain have all become accustomed to doing something. When we encounter awkward silences in relationships, conflicts, or a project that has reached an impasse, our internal alarm system immediately shrieks, pushing us to take action right now. You are afraid of losing a sense of control. You feel that if you don't explain, don't fix it, don't vent, things will spiral into complete destruction. So, you keep sending signals to the outside world. You pull people into long, drawn-out conversations. You repeatedly run through worst-case scenarios in your mind, trying to preemptively formulate solutions. Do you think you are solving problems? But right now, in this thick, rich darkness, I ask you to honestly ask yourself, did that frantic, controlled-driven intervention actually make things better? Or did you simply stir a pool of water which only needed time to settle back into clarity, into an even murkier mess? Slow your breathing down. Breathe in deeply, feeling the cool, damp air flow through your nostrils, filling your chest. And then, very slowly, push this breath, laden with fatigue, out. In ancient India, over 2,500 years ago, there was another moment that called for this same settling. It was a scorching summer noon. The sun beat down like a poisonous fire. Not a breath of wind stirred the air, and the distant landscape shimmered, distorted by the intense heat. The Buddha and his disciple, Ananda, were walking along dusty, dry road. Their feet were thick with yellow dirt, their gray robes soaked with sweat. An extreme, burning thirst clawed at their throats. Finally, at the end of the road, they heard the faint sound of water. It was a small stream, cutting through the forest. A flash of relief lit up on Ananda's eyes. He hurried forward, alms bowl in hand, running toward the stream. However, as he pushed aside the bushes and looked hopefully at the water, the smile on his face froze instantly. Just minutes before, a massive merchant caravan, driving dozens of heavy ox carts, had forded this very stream. The water, once crystal clear, was now churned into a thick, murky soup. The mud, rotting leaves, and gritty sand from the riverbed had all been stirred up to the surface. The entire stream had become a flowing ribbon of liquid mud, and Ananda felt an intense wave of frustration and agitation. He was so terribly thirsty, and the Buddha needed water too. He looked at the muddy water, and his instinct to do something immediately drove him. He rolled up his sleeves, stepped into the muddy shallows, and tried using his hands to brush the dead leaves away from the surface. He tried to use his bowl to skim off the suspended sill. He blocked to the left, pushed to the right, sweating profusely. But the result was predictable. The harder he tried to clean it, the more his movement stirred up the mud. The water, under his intervention, became even murkier and more hopeless than before. He returned to the Buddha, holding an empty, mud-caked bowl. His head hung low, his voice filled with frustration and agitation. World-honored one, the water is far too muddy. It's completely undrinkable. I tried my best to clear it, but it only got worse. We'll have to keep moving and search for another river. The Buddha looked quietly at the agitated Ananda. He offered no reproach, nor did he agree with Ananda's proposal. He simply walked to the base of a towering sal tree and, in that dense, cool shade, slowly settled down, crossing his legs, closing his eyes. He said to Ananda, in a voice of profound peace, Ananda, go and sit beneath that tree. Do nothing at all. Just wait. Ananda's heart was filled with doubt and resistance. Do nothing? How could that possibly solve the problem? We are so thirsty. If we don't keep going, if we don't search for a new water source, are we just to sit here and wait to die? But under the irresistible, tranquil force field of the Buddha's presence, Ananda could only suppress his inner turmoil. He walked over to a tree not far away and sat down. Time trickled by, second by second. The sun remained pitilessly hot. The feeling of thirst was still intense. Ananda sat under the tree, as if on a bed of needles, his mind racing wildly, churning through all possible solutions. But within his line of sight, the Buddha sat like a perfect, immovable stone carving, his breath so subtle it was almost imperceptible. The Buddha's silence was like an invisible gravity, firmly pinning Ananda in place, severing all his impulses to intervene outwardly. So he sat. He didn't know for how long. The shadows of the trees began to slowly lengthen. A breeze threaded through the woods, bringing with it a slight, welcome coolness. The Buddha finally opened his eyes, slowly, and said to Ananda now, "Go and look at that stream again." With a mixture of doubt and uncertainty, Ananda went back to the water's edge. The moment he parted the bushes, he froze. The small stream, which just a short while ago had been churning like liquid mud, was now as clear as crystal. The silt that had been suspended in the water, no longer subjected to any external force to keep it stirred up, hide by following its own natural gravity, quietly, peacefully settled all the way down to the riverbed. The clear stream sparkled with tiny, fragmented golden lights under the setting sun's reflection. Ananda had done nothing. He hadn't filtered. He hadn't scooped. He hadn't diverted. He had simply given it time. He had given it silence. In that pool of muddy water, in a state of non-interference, had performed the miracle of purifying itself. Now, draw your attention away from that ancient Indian forest and bring it back, here, to your present body. Feel your torso. Feel the depth to which it is sinking into the mattress or the sofa. With every exhale, let your body become just a little heavier than the breath before. Imagine that inside your body, there are countless particles of mud, the anxieties, the rage, grievances of the day churning wildly. They crash through your bloodstream, flooding your brain, preventing you from seeing the truth of things. You don't need to do what Anna did, trying to reach your hand into your brain and scoop those emotions out. Trying to use thinking to solve the problem of thinking is like trying to smooth the ripples on water with your hand. It only creates larger waves. What you need to do now is to become that Buddha. Seated beneath the sal tree, allow your chin to draw back just a fraction, releasing the back of your neck. Feel your shoulders. Are they still subtly hunched up, as if in a constant state of readiness to take on a burden? On your next exhale, give your shoulders full permission to collapse. Let them soften, defenseless, pressing deeply into the support beneath you. Bring your awareness to your hands. No matter what position they are in right now, silently, in your heart, recite this: I give you permission to rest. Imagine the strength draining from your 10 fingers. The tight, neurological impulse to hold on to something is dripping away, drop by drop, from your fingertips into the darkness. Your palms are becoming very soft, very warm. You are relinquishing your excessive need to intervene in the world. All those times in your life when the water was muddy, those unsent emails, those humiliating misunderstandings, those relationships showing no progress, let them all down now. Tell yourself, I do not need to solve all problems right now. I give myself permission for things to be temporarily unclear. I give myself permission to have no answers just yet. Breathe in deeply, and with a slow, effortless breath, exhale. In this long, quiet sitting, let us observe another scene. unfolding in an ancient Zen temple. It is a temple perched on a high mountain peak. In the center of its courtyard is a water basin, carved from a single block of blue-gray stone. The surface of the water in this basin is, on most days, a flawless mirror, perfectly reflecting the passing clouds and flying birds overhead. Early one morning, the young novice monk is sweeping the courtyard. Suddenly, a gust of autumn wind blows, and a single red maple leaf drifts down from a tree, landing precisely with the tiny, clear drip into the stone basin. That perfect mirror surface is broken. Ripples, one after another, spread outward from where the leaf fell, shattering the reflection of the clouds. The young novice is someone who pursues perfection relentlessly. Seeing these ripples breaking the stillness, a powerful compulsion rises in his heart. He immediately drops his broom and rushes to the basin, intent on restoring the calm. He extends both small hands, trying to press the ripples flat, like ironing a piece of silk on the water's surface. He pats here, presses there, but water yields and flows. Every single touch he makes does not make the ripples disappear. Instead, it creates even more chaotic waves. What began as tiny ripples caused by a single leaf has, under his strenuous fixing, become a churning pot of chaotic water. He is so anxious he is drenched in sweat, his hands splashing frantically in the water, nearly on the verge of tears. At this moment, the old abbot, leaning on his staff, appears silently behind him. The abbot does not stop him. He simply watches quietly for a while. And then, thin and low, resonant voice says, "Child, take 3 steps back. Place your hands behind your back." Sulking, the novice does as he is told. He takes 3 steps back, his wet hands clasped behind him, his chest still heaving with anxiety. "Now, watch the water. Do not go near it. Do not touch it. Just watch," says the old abbot. The novice stares intently at the basin. At first, the water is still shaking violently. But, having lost the churning of his hands, the ripples begin to gradually weaken. 1 ring, 2 rings. The waves grow flatter, more subtle. After a minute, the very last ripple has vanished against the stone edge. The leaf that started it all now floats quietly in a corner, and the entire water surface has, once again, become a perfect, flawless mirror. The reflections of the drifting clouds and birds have reappeared. Crisp and clear, the old abbot turns to the novice and says, "Your hands were the source of the ripples, when you tried to use the very tools that create the ripples to calm them. You only manufacture more chaos. The best way to deal with ripples is to withdraw your hands and entrust everything to time and to silence." What a brutally beautiful truth this is. In our modern world, we are each of us that young novice, desperately trying to smooth out the water's surface. We harbor a deep fear of imperfection and unresolved matters. We believe that if we just try hard enough, if we can just say the most impeccably irrefutable words, if we just pour enough energy into intervening, we can iron life out until it is perfectly flat. But the fact is, this life itself is made up of countless, randomly falling leaves. It is destined to ripple. It is destined to have misunderstandings. It is destined to have chaos that you simply cannot control. When you are there, manically explaining, people-pleasing, and entangled all to maintain a perfect image or to salvage a relationship about to shatter, you are those 2 hands, splashing frantically in the water. Not only do you drain your own energy to exhaustion, you also make the entire situation more and more unmanageable. So, withdraw your hands. Take 3 steps back. Now, let us make an even deeper descent with the body. Shift your attention to the space between your eyebrows that place we habitually furrow tight when anxious. Imagine that a single, one drop of essential oil is slowly melting there. This gentle heat spreads along your forehead, easing towards your temples. Your brow becomes as smooth and open as the surface of that still pool of water. Next, let this gentle warmth flow downwards, and let it glide across your cheeks. Across your jawbone, you might suddenly realize that you have been clenching your teeth all this time. Now, allow your upper and lower teeth to part ever so slightly. Give your tongue the space to relax completely. Let it sink, soft and heavy, onto the floor of your mouth. Continue to move downwards. Feel your chest rising and falling with your breath. With every inhale, you are accepting all the imperfections of this present moment. With every exhale, you are releasing those fixations that tried to control everything. Your body is dissolving, just as a piece of ice slowly melts into warm water. Your muscles are losing their rigid outlines. Your bones are becoming immensely heavy. You feel yourself sinking down through the mattress, down through the floorboards, plummeting towards that absolute, soundproof chamber at the very center of the earth. Your breath is growing slower and lighter. In this depth, any noise from the outside world, whether it's the wind and rain beyond the window, or the distant sound of traffic, has been filtered out by this thick layer of darkness and stillness. Your mind, that pool of water once made so murky by overthinking, has now settled completely. The mud has returned to the riverbed. The ripples have returned to the calm. You have finally tasted the fullness of doing absolutely nothing, yet possessing everything. The water is clear. The mirror is whole again. In this wisdom of non-interference, you have recovered the energy you overdrafted. But what if what you face is not just a pool of muddy water, or a single falling leaf? What if, tomorrow, when you step out of this silent meditation chamber and back into the turbulent river of reality, a massive ship comes charging straight at you through the thick fog? When a malicious attack comes without warning, when others hurl their inner poverty at you with brutal force, will the lake of your heart, which has just found its calm, instantly whip up into a violent storm again? What, exactly, is behind that dense fog, hurtling towards you, in the boundless deep water and shadow? Is your newly calmed heart like ready to face a fog? Don't rush to open your eyes. Let your sense of sight continue to rest in this safe, high-contrast darkness. Feel the temperature of the air around you. It seems to have dropped a few degrees. It's a slight, damp chill, like the surface of a river in the early morning, untouched yet by the sun. Take a deep breath in, and you can even smell it, the scent of aged, old wood in the cold, crisp river water. Imagine you are sitting in a small, flat boat. There are no light sources around you. The horizon line has been completely swallowed by an immense, lead gray fog. This fog is so dense it seems to have a tangible weight. It's like layer after layer of gray-white film, sealing you off from the entire world. You cannot see the riverbank. You cannot see where the current ends. All you can hear is the sound of a wooden oar slicing through the water, a monotonous, slow, yet strangely grounding rhythm. Swish, swish. Your body sways gently with the small swells beneath the boat. Feel this rocking. It is so rhythmic, from your tailbone, up along your spine, to the back of your neck. Your entire spinal column is breathing with the rhythm of the river. Every time a wave lifts the bottom of the boat, you breathe in deeply. Every time the water recedes and the boat sinks down, you let out a long, slow exhale. But within this gentle rocking, can you sense a thread of deep-seated vigilance? Because in real life, when we navigate the rivers of human relationships, we are always filled with this vigilance. In this fog where you can't see what's ahead, You never know when you'll hit a hidden reef. Never know when someone will speed past from behind. And you especially never know when another boat will come barreling straight into you. Listen. Within the white noise of the flowing water, from the deepest part of that dense fog, there seems to come another sound of water. A heavy, fast sound, carrying the pressure that is reckless and uncaring. Over 2,000 years ago, Zhuangzi described a voyage through just such a fog. In that story, a ferryman was carefully pulling his small boat, trying to navigate through this treacherous, thick mist. Suddenly, in the great immense ahead, a huge, dark silhouette appeared. It was a large ship. It wasn't slowing down at all. It wasn't changing course. Like a blinded beast, it rode the wind and waves, heading straight for the ferryman's small craft. If you were that ferryman, how would your body react? Your pupils would dilate in an instant. Your heart would suddenly pound. Adrenaline would surge wildly through your blood. The ferryman in the story was no different. He gripped his oar tightly, veins bulging on his forehead, and roared with all his might into that dark shape. Get out of the way. Push off. You're going to crash into me. Are you blind? His shout echoed across the empty river, carrying with it a charge of extreme anger and fear. But the large ship gave no response. It kept barreling forward at that terrifying speed, without a shred of mercy. Bang! With a loud crack of splintering wood, the small boat was violently rammed. The ferryman was thrown across the deck by the massive inertia. His arm was scraped and bleeding. His cargo was scattered everywhere. In that moment, rage erupted like a volcano, completely consuming his reason. He scrambled to his feet, fists clenched, ready to curse and hurl the most vicious insults imaginable at the helmsman of that other ship. In his mind, he was preparing to judge, 1,000 times over, the other's stupidity, malice, and sheer unreasonableness. But, just as he opened his mouth, a gust of river wind swept through, briefly tearing a gap in the dense fog between the two vessels. A cold, high-contrast light pierced through the mist, illuminating the deck opposite. There was no one there. No foolish helmsman. No malicious enemy. No perpetrator who deliberately wanted to destroy his life. It was just an empty boat. Its mooring line had snapped, and it had been drifting blindly down the river, carried by the current and the wind. The ferryman's surging rage, that fury powerful enough to tear the sky apart the moment he saw that empty boat. Suddenly, it was like a flame sucked dry of all its air. It extinguished. Instantly, he dropped his fist, utterly deflated, and let out a long, deep sigh. No anger, no cursing. Even the physical pain seemed to lessen. He just silently picked up a wooden bucket, started bailing the river water out of his boat, patched the broken planks, and continued on his journey. Why? Why is it that, faced with the exact same severe impact, facing the exact same significant loss, if there is a person standing on the other deck, we fly into an uncontrollable rage, wanting to tear them apart? Yet, when we discover it was just an empty boat, all that anger can vanish like smoke in an instant? Because anger needs a target. Our ego needs an imaginary enemy to sustain its sense of existence. Our anger is often not because we were hurt, but because we felt targeted, disrespected, maliciously treated. We assume the other person did it on purpose. We assume their actions contain a judgment, a negation of who we are. Now, slowly, gently, bring your awareness back from that ancient river surface. Bring it back into your body. Here and now, feel your chest. That place that always feels blocked, tight, and heavy whenever we feel anger, grievance, or offense. Send your breath there, tenderly. Think back, in your recent life, to the large ships that have rammed into you? Was it a brusque, accusatory message your boss sent in the group chat? Was it your partner's distracted, dismissive response to something you shared over dinner? Or was it a stranger who cut you off aggressively in traffic and then even rolled down their window to give you the finger? When those impacts happened, was your first reaction, just like that ferryman, to scream inside, "Why are you doing this to me?" You interpreted their every move, every word, as a personal attack aimed directly at you. You constructed a helmsman full of malice in your mind, and you started to ruminate, to internally bleed energy, feeling like the whole world was against you. But right here, in this absolutely safe, silent auditory space, I invite you to try looking at those people who collided with you through the eyes of Zhuangzi. That boss who spoke so harshly, they might be facing the immense fear of their company's cash flow collapsing. That partner who brushed you off, they might have suffered a severe blow to their own self-worth at work that day, their brain having no bandwidth left to process anything more. That raging driver who cut you off, they might be racing to the hospital. Just gone through an emotional meltdown themselves. They are not targeting you. They are simply, in this brutal world, people who have lost control of their own emotional rudders. They are a fleet of empty boats hijacked by anxiety, fear, exhaustion, and the blind force of their own karma, drifting blindly through the fog of life. When you are an empty boat, and you bump into others, it is not intentional. When others are empty boats, and they bump into you, it is merely the chance meeting of gravity, wind direction, and water currents. Breathe in deeply. Imagine you are breathing in this cool, clear mist from the river. Slowly, exhale, and as you breathe out, silently say to yourself it was just an empty boat. Let this phrase, like a mantra with physical weight, sink down through your chest and settle deep into your lower belly. Feel your heart. Feel the rhythm of its beating. With every pulse, it pumps this wisdom of the empty boat into your bloodstream, delivering it to every limb, every bone in your body. Your shoulders are no longer stiff, because you no longer need to hold up a defensive posture against the attacks of imaginary enemies. Your belly is softening, because the anger and the grievance, having lost their target, are now rapidly dissolving, like ice cubes melting in the sun. Now, let's descend to an even deeper layer. If others can be empty boats, what about you? If others bump into you because they have lost control of their emotional rudder, then the reason you feel the pain of being bumped, the reason you suffer, is it because you have loaded your own boat far too heavily? You've loaded it with the fixation on a perfect persona. You've loaded it with the craving for fair treatment. You've loaded it with the vanity of needing to win, needing to be respected. Because your cargo is so much, so heavy, any minor scrape makes you feel like you have suffered a catastrophic loss. Imagine, on this vast, fog-shrouded river, what if you, yourself, were to become an empty boat? Let your breathing become shallower, lighter. Imagine the outline of your body beginning to blur within this mist. Your skin, this boundary that separates you from the outside world, begins to turn translucent. Your bones become hollow and light, like reeds. Those external judgments, accusations, misunderstandings, they are no longer solid projectiles. They are just gusts of wind. When a gust of wind hits a solid block of wood, the wood vibrates. It gets damaged. But when a gust of wind blows through a hollow bamboo tube, not only does it leave no scar behind, it actually plays a piece of ethereal, hollow music. Feel the exquisite beauty of this emptiness. You don't have to keep a tight grip on that fragile self anymore. When you are not defending that tie, nothing can truly harm you. Your body is now an open, empty valley. Those angry, crashing sounds enter your world and are reduced to mere faint echoes, before dissolving, at last, into boundless silence. Let your legs relax completely, letting them sink into the cushion beneath you, as if they are dissolving into the river water. Let your torso surrender all resistance. Feel that immense lightness, the lightness of having nothing to bear, nothing to carry. In this nearly transparent state, time itself seems to have stopped flowing. You are no longer the individual, exhausted from running the gauntlet of human interaction. You have become the river itself. You have become the pervasive mist. You have become silence. Incarnate? But when the fog finally lifts, when the small boat reaches the shore, when your feet step back onto solid ground and you walk back into that muddy, chaotic, dusty world of the mundane, the test has only just begun. Sometimes, we encounter people and situations we simply cannot avoid. They are not empty boats that happen to bump into us. They are genuine rubbles we truly need to bear, to face, when we have no choice but to wade through the water, when our feet are caked in mud, when we have carried a heavy burden on our backs through reality. After we set that burden down, how do we ensure that our hearts are emptied in that very same instant? If your body has already crossed the river, is your heart still on the opposite bank, stubbornly carrying that entanglement that should have ended? Don't rush to answer this question. In this moment, wrapped in the thick, dark night, let your vision continue to rest in this high contrast shadow. Imagine you are lying in your own familiar bed. The main lights in the room have been completely cut off. Only the faintest sliver of cold, pale light from a distant street lamp outside your window sneaks in. This light falls in a slant across the ceiling, and as the night breeze stirs the tree shadows, it crawls slowly, almost spectrally, across the wall. Your body is still, covered by soft bedding. On a physical level, you are in a state of absolute safety, absolute relaxation. But what about your brain? Feel the temperature and the vibration inside your skull. It's not quiet in there. Inside that small cranial cavity, the harsh, neurasthenia-inducing incandescent light is blazing. Right now, in this moment, is your mind, like a runaway projector, wildly, uncontrollably replaying a conversation that happened today, or yesterday, or even last month. Maybe it was in a crowded meeting room, a colleague's subtly barbed criticism. Maybe it was on a packed train, a hostile glare from a stranger. Or maybe it was at the dinner table, a partner's dismissive answer that made you feel utterly unseen. That event, in the three-dimensional, physical world, has clearly ended. The meeting has adjourned. The train has reached its stop. The dinner plates have been washed and put away. But inside your brain, that war has not only not ended, it is being magnified, stretched, and re-edited ad infinitum. You lie in this darkness, your jaw unconsciously clenched. Inside, you are frantically rewriting your own lines. I shouldn't have backed down like that. If I had just thrown that one line back at him, he would have been speechless. What right does he have to judge me? What did he mean by that? Your heartbeat begins to accelerate slightly. Your breath grows short and shallow. Your stomach churns with a dull, anxious ache. The room is clearly empty. Everything around you is profoundly silent. Yet your body has entered a state of exhausting combat readiness. You are being strangled by a ghost named rumination. You think you are processing. You think that through this repetitive mental chewing, you can reclaim lost dignity and a sense of control. But in reality, you are just taking a small piece of broken glass you already swallowed, regurgitating it, and chewing it over and over again, letting it shred your inner energy to bloody ribbons. That conflict which consumed only 5 minutes of your time in reality is now inside your mind, continuing to drain your life force for 5 hours. Or even 5 nights straight. Now, draw a deep, deep breath. Feel how this cool, fresh air struggles to pass through your constricted chest. And then, very slowly, with a deep sense of weariness, it all out. Let's shift our gaze away from your bedroom filled with modern anxiety and move it backwards to an ancient road in Japan. Centuries ago, it too is soaked in a suffocating rain. It is an oppressively hot, humid summer afternoon. The sky hangs so low it seems about to press down upon people's heads. The storm clouds, like thick cotton batting saturated with ink, have locked away every trace of sunlight. A torrential downpour has been falling for a full day and a night, transforming the previously smooth, yellow dirt road into a flowing river of sticky, murky, yellow mud. Two Zen monks, Master Tan's and his younger disciple, Denjo, are trudging through this mire. The rain hammers on their straw hats with a muffled, insistent beat. Their coarse, gray robes, already completely soaked through by the rain and splattered mud, hang heavily, wrapping around their bodies with a dead weight. Every step requires pulling their legs, with a nauseating, sucking slop from the grip of the mud. Master Tan's An is the older practitioner. His steps are heavy, yet his demeanor is utterly relaxed. The rain streams down his wrinkled face, but his eyes remain like a deep, still well, serenely reflecting the storm raging around him. His younger disciple, Genjo, walking behind him, appears far more rigid. Genjo is a young monk, fiercely attached to the monastic rules, almost to the point of rigidity. His brow is furrowed tight. He steps carefully, trying to avoid the puddles. His lips move in a constant, low murmur of sutras, trying, in this foul condition, to maintain his purity as a cultivator. They walk on in silence until the ancient road is cut off by a river, swollen into a torrent by the relentless storm. The water level has risen drastically, the current raging, tearing broken branches and yellow silt, roaring and clawing at the banks. What was once a fordable shallow is now a dangerous stretch of rapids. At the muddy crossing, there stands a figure. It is a woman, very young and strikingly beautiful, against this dreary, filthy landscape of gray and brown. Her elegant kimono of pale blue silk, embroidered with silver cherry blossoms, is jarringly out of place. But now, the hem of that fine garment is soaked and stained with mud. She stands before the raging, muddy water, on the verge of tears. She must cross, but with her delicate frame and cumbersome clothing, the moment she steps into that current, she will be swept away. Genjo sees the woman, and his body goes rigid. In his understanding, female form is the greatest taboo on the path of practice. The monastic code is severe. Do not look directly, and above all, do not touch. Immediately, Genjo drops his head, pulling his hat down low as if the woman were a terrifying abyss. He stands stiffly to the side, prepared to wait for the rain to stop, the water to recede, or the woman to give up. Whatever happens, he will absolutely not go near this trouble. But then, something happens that makes Genjo feel as if the sky is falling and the earth is splitting apart. Master Tanzan does not hesitate for even a single moment. He does not chant the Buddha's name. He does not close his eyes. He does not offer a single word of explanation to his disciple. He simply walks directly over to the young woman. Before Genjo's horrified, bewildered eyes, Tanzan stretches out his too rough, mud-caked hands and, in the most natural, most open manner, takes the beautiful woman into his arms and lifts her directly onto his back. Zhenzhou's pupils constrict violently. His mind goes completely blank in that instant. That's a woman. That's the sensation of silk. This is the collapse of the precepts. Tianzin seems utterly oblivious to his disciple's meltdown. With the woman on his back, he steps steadily into the icy, muddy rapids. The fierce current slams against his thighs, but his steps are as solid as stone. The woman's kimono presses tightly against his mud silk robe. Her arms encircle his neck. In this high contrast, gray, rain-soaked landscape, the scene carries a staggering visual impact. A few minutes later, Tianzin wades to the opposite bank. He bends down and gently sets the woman on a clean, flat blue stone. The woman is overwhelmed with gratitude. Bowing deeply again and again, Tianzin merely nods slightly, without a single unnecessary word of politeness, and turns to continue down the muddy road. Zhenzhou follows behind, crossing the river like a walking corpse. From that moment on, the sound of rain disappears from Zhenzhou's ears. His world is reduced to a single, deafening internal monologue. How dare he? How could he do that? We are monks. He touched that woman's body. He has broken the precepts, all his years of practice. Destroyed. What if the master finds out? What if others saw? Why does he not show even a flicker of shame? Should I confront him? For the next several hours, Zhenzhou is completely trapped in a maddening spiral of rumination. He no longer sees a single tree along the path. He does not feel the cool breeze that comes after the rain stops. He does not see the magnificent sunset glow that appears when the clouds finally part. Though his body is moving forward, his soul remains pinned mercilessly at that muddy river crossing, hearing the phantom of that woman on his back, struggling in agony through the mire. He feels a crushing weight on his chest, his breathing labored, his stomach churning. Night falls. They finally reach a dilapidated temple where they can take shelter for the night. The guest room is profoundly dim, lit only by a single oil lamp casting a pea-sized, dim, amber glow. Light and shadow tremble on the peeling walls. Tianzin takes off his wet robe, dries his body with a coarse cloth, and settles with complete relaxation onto the worn tatami mat. Crossing his legs, his face carries the satisfied tiredness of a long journey. His eyes are clear, peaceful. He takes a deep breath, preparing to enter his evening meditation. But Zhenzhou, at this moment, is like a cornered beast. In the weak lamplight, his face is pale, his eyes bloodshot, every muscle in his body trembling slightly from the effort of extreme restraint. Finally, the emotional volcano that has been building for a full half-afternoon and an entire evening erupts. He lunges towards Tianzin, his voice hoarse and shaking with anger and suppressed fury. Brother, we are monks. The precepts are like mountains. How could you carry that young, beautiful woman across the river on your back? Do you not know that a man and a woman should not touch hands? You didn't just touch her. You carried her on your back. This is beyond all reason. In the dim light of the oil lamp, Tianzin gazes quietly at Zhenzhou, who is near collapse. Light and shadow carve deep, profound lines on Tianzin's aged, weathered face. He shows no anger. He offers no defense. He doesn't even furrow his brow. He simply looks at Zhenzhou, a spark of the most utterly sincere surprise flickering in his eyes. Then, that surprise softens into a gentle smile, brimming with compassion, in that low, resonant voice that can only be born from the deepest stillness. He slowly says, Zhenzhou, that woman, I set her down on the riverbank hours ago, just after I crossed. Tianzin pauses. Those eyes, which seemed to see straight through to the soul. Hold Zhenzhou's gaze directly. You. Why are you still carrying her? Even now? This sentence lands like a heavy, muscled evening bell, crashing through that dilapidated temple, deep into the core of Zhenzhou's mind. I set her down long ago. Why are you still carrying her? Now, bring these words back from that ancient Japanese temple. Bring them here, into your bedroom. Let them echo, softly, beside your ear. Who is this woman that you have been stubbornly carrying? What is it? Is it the unfair criticism you faced at the office today? Is it the unresolved argument with your partner? Is it a look of contempt someone threw your way, making you feel small? You crossed that river long ago. That scene, in physical time, is already completely dead. The person who hurt you or angered you, they have long since moved on to other things. Eating, sleeping, watching television. They have already set you down. Only you, like that stubborn, suffering Zhenzhou, are still carrying this heavy, cold, suffocating emotional corpse from the day into the night, from the office back to your home, from the doorway onto your bed. You are letting it press on your chest, robbing you of sleep, draining your very life. You replay the scene thousands of times in your mind, trying to find the perfect comeback in your imagination, trying to win that round in hallucination. You think this is processing the problem, but this is not processing at all. This is a very subtle, insidious form of cruelty against yourself. When you keep replaying the details that made you angry and hurt, your brain cannot tell the difference between reality and imagination. Every single time you replay it, you are sending a danger signal to your body, making your amygdala pump out cortisol in a frenzy. You are not reviewing. You are, again and again, forcing yourself to re-experience the trauma, the actual harm caused by the event itself. Might be only 1%. The remaining 99% of the pain is all inflicted by you, cut by cut, through your own rumination. Now, it is time to set her down. Don't open your eyes. Take your attention completely away from those scattered, chaotic thoughts. Like a beam of a flashlight, focus it on your body, right here, right now. Feel the surface area of your back in contact with the mattress. Feel the temperature there, the pressure. This is your reality. In this moment, in this room, in this instant, there is no boss, no colleagues, no argument, no accusation. Only you. In the vast, boundless, quiet darkness that holds you. We are going to perform a physical unburdening. Bring your awareness to your shoulders. This is where modern people carry the heaviest emotional baggage. Feel the sore, stiff muscle fibers there. Imagine there are two coarse, thin ropes biting into the flesh of your shoulders. Tied to the other end of those ropes are all the anger, the grievance, the resentment of your day. That heavy, crushing burden is weighing you down, relentlessly. Now take a deep breath in. As you inhale, imagine a sword forming within you, the Vara sword of wisdom, incredibly sharp, gleaming with a cold, brilliant light. Now, as you exhale, very slowly, very long. Bicho, imagine that sword, with one swift, decisive stroke, severs the coarse ropes on your shoulders. Snap. Hear the quiet sound. Feel the sudden release of that heavy weight. The sensation of it crashing downwards. In an instant, all pressure on your shoulders vanishes. Give them permission to collapse with utter softness. without any reservation, sinking deeply into the mattress beneath you. Silently, in your heart, say to yourself, I set it down. It is over. I am no longer carrying it. Next, shift your awareness to your chest, that place that feels stuffed with a ball of wet cotton. Unable to breathe freely, the place that holds the residue of all the words you wanted to say in retort but never did. Once more, breathe in deeply, allowing the clean air to expand your ribs as much as is comfortable. Slowly, breathe out. Imagine that sour, bloated feeling of congestion in your chest transforming into a plume of gray-black smoke. And with your exhalation being completely expelled from your body, your chest becomes an empty, warm cavern. No echo of argument, just the gentle caress of a soft breeze passing through. Tell yourself, I give myself permission to not have been perfect in that moment. I allow others to misunderstand me. All of that is in the past. It no longer holds any power to hurt me. Finally, bring your awareness to your head. That brain that has been running like an overheating engine. Imagine the neurons in your cerebral cortex, flashing frantically with images and scripts from the past. With your breath, one by one, they begin to dim and extinguish. Breathe in. Breathe out. A light goes out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Another light goes out. The space inside your skull is becoming darker, cooler. You no longer need to rewrite the script of the past, because that script has been destroyed. Your soul, which was suspended in midair, has finally landed with a steady, sure descent into this warm, safe, physical body. In the present moment, you feel an indescribable lightness. It is the kind of lightness that comes after setting down a burden of hundreds of pounds, a feeling of ease that seeps even into the marrow of your bones. You are no longer gentle, struggling painfully through the mud. You have become Tianzin, who simply brushes the mud from his hands, turns over, and sleeps peacefully. You have completely let it go. The entire world is reduced to the sound of your own steady, long, gentle breathing. But as you cast that burden aside on the riverbank, as you try to fall asleep in this newfound lightness, do you notice that, although the heavy weight is no longer upon you, the lingering, habitual ache from where it pressed still seems to remain? What if, as you try to rest in this empty cavern, the harsh, accusing voices from the day still echo in your ears from time to time, like a persistent echo in a valley that you just can't seem to erase? What do you do then? Since you have already laid down the heavy weight, how do you smooth away those sharp, lingering echoes? In this moment, fully claimed by the night, do not rush to find a switch. Do not try to drown them out with a louder noise. Let your hearing, following my guidance, slowly, very slowly, sink into a profoundly deep, vast, an empty space. Imagine your consciousness is now leaving this small, anxiety-filled modern bedroom. It is floating into a massive, isolated canyon, cut off from the rest of the world. The sky still holds that film-like, low contrast, dark blue hue. On either side of the canyon, towering black cliffs, slick with dark green moss, rise into the obscurity. The air here is intensely cold and damp, carrying the metallic, stagnant scent of water trapped in the cracks of the rock. You hear no noise from modern civilization. This place is too deep, so deep that even the wind cannot enter. The only sound is the drip of water condensed on a stalactite high above. A single drop, after an agonizingly long suspension, finally surrenders to its own weight. Drip, a faint, minute sound, as it plunges into the deep pool of the canyon floor. In the lingering resonance of that single drip, A sound of footsteps emerges from the thick fog of the canyon. Heavy, chaotic, saturated with a sense of brutal violence. It is a lost samurai. He has just survived a brutal, bloody battle. Though alive, he has been separated from his forces and wandered, lost, into this lightless abyss. His suit of armor is caked with dried, dark red bloodstains and black mud. With every step, the heavy iron plates grind against each other with a harsh, scraping noise. He has been circling in this place for 3 full days and nights. Hunger, exhaustion, fear, and a bone-deep hatred for his enemies have stretched his nerves to the very breaking point. His eyes are bloodshot, like a wild beast caught in a trap, warily scanning the dense, swirling fog around him. Suddenly, a tiny current of air slips through a gap in the armor at the back of his neck. It is just the canyon's cross breeze, but to his unbearably tense, hostility-soaked nerves, it registers as the precursor to an enemy ambush. He spins around violently. With a crude, brittle motion, he draws his katana. The blade rasps against the scabbard, producing an incredibly sharp, metallic shriek. Gripping the sword with both hands, veins bulging on his forehead, he screams into the empty, blank fog with a hysterical roar. "Who's there? Come out, you cowards. I'll cut you all to pieces." This roar, pregnant with murderous intent and rage, instantly shatters the deathly silence that has reigned for 1,000 millennia. The sound wave crashes against the icy, black cliff walls and is pitilessly hurled back. "Who's there? Come out, cowards. Cut to pieces." The echoes surge in from every direction, layer upon layer, as if 1,000 unseen enemies are using the same venom, the same fury, to mock and taunt him mercilessly. The samurai spirals into complete madness. He is utterly convinced he is surrounded. Brandishing his razor-sharp longsword, he slashes wildly into the thick fog, cutting through dripping ferns, striking hard against solid rock, sending sparks scattering into the gloom. He attacks fruitlessly, all the while screaming the filthiest, most venomous curses he knows. "Come out and die, you worthless scum, and die." "Worthless scum," the canyon replies, coldly. The harder he tries, the more deafening the echoes become. The more rage he projects, the more overwhelming is the malice the canyon throws back at him. In this brutal, bloody battle against himself, the samurai's strength is rapidly drained. Finally, the air in his lungs is completely spent. His knees buckle, and with a heavy thud, he collapses into the icy mud. His katana slips from his trembling hands. In desperation, he covers his ears, trying to block out the endless, venomous echoes that seem destined never to cease. Just as he is about to be utterly devoured by this echoing chamber of malice, a single, dim, amber lantern light flickers to life deep within the fog. The glow is incredibly weak, yet it carries an undeniable sense of grounded calm. An old monk, dressed in coarse hemp cloth, leaning on a simple, unadorned wooden staff, slowly makes his way before the samurai. The old monk's face is a map of deep wrinkles, but his eyes are like the still, dark pool at the canyon bottom, utterly undisturbed. The old monk quietly looks at the man kneeling on the ground, gasping for breath. He does not ask why he is raging. He does not ask where he came from. He simply gestures towards the towering black cliffs surrounding them and, in a very low, very slow, yet penetrating voice, says, "Do you see this canyon? It is like a mirror, made of stone. It is, in itself, empty. It holds nothing. It has no intention whatsoever of causing you harm." The old monk pauses, His eyes fall with a deep, sad compassion on the mud-covered Longsworth. Those cowards you heard, those curses, that murderous intent to cut you to pieces. All of it was what you yourself gave to it. The more force you used to roar at it, the more it hurled your own violence back at you, completely unchanged. When you swung your sword here, the only thing you were hacking at was your own shadow. The samurai freezes. His chest is still heaving violently, but the madness in his eyes begins, slowly, to dissipate under the old monk's calm, even voice. Then, what do I do? Why won't they stop? The samurai asks, his voice filled with despair. The old monk smiles faintly. In the dim lantern light, that smile appears infinitely weary, infinitely profound. Sheath your sword, close your mouth, and if you absolutely must say something to this canyon, try offering it a blessing. Or say nothing at all, hesitantly, doubtfully. The samurai looks at the old monk with trembling hands. He picks up his Longsworth from the mud. Click. He slowly slides it back into its scabbard. He closes his eyes, draws a deep, deep breath of the canyon's icy, damp air, and forces down the remaining tremors in his heart. Then, facing the dense fog before him, he speaks for words, softly. May you be at peace. A few seconds of absolute, dead silence pass, and then, from deep within the cliff walls, a very soft, very ethereal sigh floats back. At peace. May you be at peace. The echo is no longer jarring. It is no longer charged with murder. It is like a gentle, tender hand, softly stroking the samurai's scarred face. His rigid shoulders collapse. He says not another word. The moment he chooses to withdraw his own voice, the entire canyon, the entire world, instantly returns to that indestructible, heartbreaking silence. This is the secret of the echo. In the battlefield of human relationships, we have each, at some point, been that samurai, swinging our sword wildly in the canyon. Think back to the last heated argument you had, perhaps on a messaging app, perhaps in a meeting room, when someone presented a viewpoint that made you uncomfortable, or offered a slight criticism of your work. Didn't the samurai inside you draw its sword in an instant? You felt your territory was invaded. You felt your dignity was trampled. And so, you began typing furiously on your keyboard, composing a lengthy treatise full of logical loopholes you'd cut, dripping with sarcasm in defensive attacks. You hit end and stared intently at the screen, waiting for the other person to be defeated by your logic. And what was the result? You received an even longer, even more heated, even more malicious counterattack in return. You thought you were attacking each other, but in reality, you were both just roaring at an invisible cliff wall. Social interaction, at its core, is a giant echo chamber. When you communicate with an energy that is desperate to prove yourself right, desperate to crush the other person, what you send out is a blade. What gets back to you is inevitably a volley of arrows. The more force you apply, the more violent the rebound. We are always obsessed with having the last word, with winning on the verbal level. We mistakenly believe that having the final say is victory. But look at that samurai, roaring in the canyon. Every shout he made drained his own life force. Did he win? In the wisdom of the Dharma, one of the greatest illusions is the attempt to extinguish conflict with conflict. You cannot put out a fire with gasoline, and you can never, ever silence a person who is already arguing by raising your own volume. Because the moment you become desperate to refute, you have already fallen into the other person's frequency. You have been hooked by their karma. They cast out an anxious, angry bait. And you not only bit down on it, you tried to chew it to pieces. In this process, your own clarity of mind is completely polluted. Your energy is violently drained in this utterly meaningless tug of war. The highest form of counter has never been a battle of sharp tongues. The highest form of counter is non-reverberation. Nil. Bring your hearing back from that ancient canyon. Focus it back inside your own body. We will now perform a deep energetic severance, specifically targeting communication and resistance. Please, gently land your awareness around your ears. Feel the temperature of your outer ears. Feel the very subtle, present vibration of your eardrums as they receive the background white noise. During the noisy day, your ears were forced to receive so many sounds charged with aggression and judgment. These were like stones thrown into the water of your mind, creating layer after layer of defensive ripples. Now, take a deep breath in. Imagine you are inhaling a stream of intensely cool blue light. This light follows your nasal passages, entering directly into your brainstem, enveloping your auditory nerves. Slowly, breathe out. As you exhale, imagine your two ears are no longer hard, unyielding stone walls like the canyon cliffs. Instead, they have transformed into something incredibly soft, incredibly deep porous, absorbent sponges. When the accusations, the misunderstandings of others, even the anxious, urging voices come again, they no longer crash against solid rock, producing those sharp, painful echoes. Instead, they land in this boundless, soft sponge, tooth, a muffled, quiet sound. All the sounds, all the emotional darts, are silently absorbed, neutralized, swallowed whole by this sponge. No ricochet, no echo. Tell yourself, I will no longer be that wall that reflects emotion. I allow other people's anxiety to belong to them. I have no obligation to receive it, and even less need to refute it. Continue to draw your attention downwards, to your chest cavity. Very often, when we forcefully suppress the impulse to retort, the chest feels a tight, suffocating pressure, a dull ache. That is because your heart's capacity is not yet large enough. The cavity of your chest is still narrow. Dead and dally. Now, with your next slow, deep inhalation, imagine your chest expanding limitlessly in all directions. Your ribs are becoming as vast as mountain ranges. Your heart is transforming into a boundless, infinite night sky. Breathe in. Your chest opens. It opens further. So vast it can hold the entire universe in a space this immense. What is a venomous judgment cast by another? What is an unjust accusation? It is nothing more than a tiny, fleeting meteor streaking across a vast night sky. It passes, it glimmers for a second, and then it vanishes completely into the boundless darkness. It doesn't even get the chance to touch your boundaries. Exhale. Let this feeling of infinite vastness, of profound, empty stillness, permeate every single capillary. You no longer feel that tightness. You no longer feel wronged, because you suddenly realize that the I who is always so desperately trying to prove itself right to others is actually profoundly weak. A person who possesses truly immense inner energy does not need anyone's approval to validate their existence. Just like that old monk, just like that canyon. When you stop trying to prove anything, when you withdraw that self which is so anxious to argue, you become that silent space itself. The more force others use to attack you, the more their actions look like someone punching at empty air, and in the end, they will only exhaust themselves by their own excessive force. Your breath is becoming incredibly subtle. almost as if you can no longer feel the air moving in and out. Your body feels weightless, as if it has lost all physical mass and merged completely with the darkness filling the room. You have successfully neutralized the echoes from the outside world. You have pulled out the emotional fuses that others plugged into you. You think that as long as you can maintain this stillness of not reacting to external provocations, you can finally be free in the social game. But what if the pressure you feel isn't coming from other people's verbal attacks at all? What if what makes you feel so utterly exhausted? What makes your movements stiff and rigid? What makes you feel like even breathing is a transgression? Is not the malicious words spoken by others, but simply someone else's gaze? When countless silent eyes are fixed on you from the darkness, when, no matter what you do, you feel like an invisible audience is subjecting you to harsh judgment, will that canyon, which has just found its peace, be whipped into a howling gale once more by this silent observation? How do we dissolve these ghostly spectators who have taken up residence in our minds? Keep your eyes closed. Here, in this room where even the light has become profoundly languid, let's do a very subtle experiment involving the senses of the body. Imagine you are alone right now, in an incredibly safe, vintage bedroom, with rain falling outside. The main light is off. Only a single, low wattage, warm yellow table lamp is on, casting a small pool of dim light on the rough textured wall. You are wrapped in a thick, soft blanket, sinking deep into the embrace of a large sofa. Because you are absolutely certain no one is watching, your posture is completely relaxed, maybe even a little slouched. Your facial muscles are utterly slack. Your jaw hangs slightly loose. Your gaze, unfocused, drifts across the trails of rain streaking down the window pane. In this absolutely private space, free from any gaze, your body is a puddle of soft water. Your energy is contained, coalesced, sure. But now, in the very next second, the experiment begins. Imagine the door to this room suddenly opens. Without a sound, someone you care about immensely, maybe that stern boss of yours, maybe an elder you've always tried to please, or maybe a group of followers from social media whose opinion you desperately value walks in quietly. They pull up a chair and sit down in the shadows of the room. They don't say a word. They offer no judgment. They just fix their eyes on you cold. Evaluated, scrutinizing eyes. The moment you sense this gaze, what happens to your body? Even if they don't utter a single word, even if it's just a phantom stare, the instant you are touched by that gaze, the puddle of water inside you instantly freezes into hard, solid ice. Your spine will unconsciously straighten, because you must now project an image of propriety. Your breath will suddenly become very shallow, as if even a deep, full breath might expose some vulgarity. Your previously relaxed facial muscles will be instantly lifted, pulled into a social mask called attentiveness, or a pleasant smile. You begin, involuntarily, to scan yourself in your own mind. Is my hair messy? Does my expression look dull? Did I do something ridiculous just a moment ago? A single gaze, just one spectator, sitting in the shadows, and in a fraction of a second, it has completely hijacked your nervous system. You have been transformed from someone simply savoring the present moment into an actor walking on eggshells under a harsh spotlight. To maintain this flawless performance, your energy is now burning outwards, wildly, at 10 times, 100 times the normal rate. This is the deepest reason why we modern people are so utterly exhausted. We are not always wounded by specific words. More often than not, we are simply being drained to death by the phantom audience living in our heads. Let's rewind the film of time, trolling it back several hundred years, to a room filled with that same oppressive atmosphere. Let's see how this weight of the gaze can destroy a master of the highest caliber. It is an ancient eastern castle. Over a century ago, in this dreary, rainy early autumn, the supreme ruler of the region, a feudal lord, or daimyo, of notoriously volatile temper and impossibly exacting taste, has ordered the renovation of his central tower keep. To display his absolute authority and prestige, he summons the most famous calligraphy master in the land. He demands that the master, on a massive golden leaf screen at the very heart of the keep, inscribed for colossal characters T-E-N-K-F-U-B-U rule the realm by force. For this calligraphy master, long at the pinnacle of his renown, writing these 4 words should be as natural as breathing. His brushwork has been praised as roaming clouds and startled dragons. The moment he picks up the brush, all the lines simply flow from his wrist, effortlessly, tearing the raw, organic vitality. But the environment for this day's work is a nightmare. Not only has the daimyo come to supervise in person, but he has brought a dozen fully armed samurai and a gaggle of court-appointed literati to critique the work. This crowd sits, a dark, oppressive mass, in the shadows of the great hall, like an impenetrable wall of iron. The light in the room is brutally dim, illuminated only by a few braziers of glowing charcoal, which cast the daimyo's dark, merciless face in flickering light and shadow. The air is thick with the intense, pungent aroma of pine-soot ink, and the cold, metallic smell of iron from the samurai sword sheaths. The master kneels before the immense golden screen. His disciple, beside him, is grinding the inkstick with an agonizingly slow rhythm. Shh. The sound of the inkstick rubbing against the inkstone is amplified to an unbearable degree in the deathly silent hall. The master reaches out his hand and takes hold of the brush he has used for decades. In this very instant, he feels the immense, almost physical pressure of the gazes behind him. He knows the daimyo is watching him. The samurai are watching him. His peers are watching him. If he fails, he will not only lose a lifetime of hard-won prestige, he could very well be ordered to commit suicide on the spot. This gaze, imbued with the power of life and death, instantly transforms into a crushing weight of 1,000 pounds. Pressing down relentlessly onto the master's wrist, he draws a deep breath and suspends the ink blade and tip of the brush above the gold leaf. What begins to bead on his forehead, tracing paths down his cheeks and dripping onto the wooden floor. He tries to summon the effortless, flowing intention he usually commands, but he is horrified to find that his arm is trembling, ever so slightly. His mind is no longer filled with the structure of the characters. Instead, it's filled with what expression is on the daimyo's face right now. If the first stroke lands too heavily, what will they say? Does my posture look sufficiently masterful? He has become a prisoner, held captive by the staring eyes of the spectators. Finally, gritting his teeth, he commits the brush to the surface. But the lines that should be vigorous and powerful are now stiff, stagnant, like a dead, withered branch. As he writes the third character, the tension in his wrist causes a single, excess drop of ink to fall from the brush tip. It lands on the gold leaf and blooms into a glaring, hideous black blotch. Ruined. The daimyo rises abruptly. He hurls his folded fan to the ground with a savage crack. A cold, cruel laugh escapes him. This is what the world calls the greatest under heaven? Utterly laughable. Having delivered this furious judgment, the daimyo storms out in a rage, announcing he will go to the back hall for tea. He gives the master half an hour. If, in that time, the master cannot produce a work that satisfies him, he will be punished. The samurai and the literati follow in the daimyo's wake. The vast, dimly lit hall is now empty, save for the master and his young disciple. The master's face is ashen. He slumps to the ground in despair. He looks at his own hands, which are spazzing uncontrollably, and sinks into an abyss of hopelessness and profound self-doubt. He can barely catch his breath. It is as if every ounce of his strength has been drained by that row of spectators who just sat in the shadows. At this moment, the young disciple, who has been standing quietly at the side, silently approaches his master. In a voice that is incredibly light, almost carrying a hint of playfulness, he says, "Master, the daimyo has gone to tea. She won't be back for half an hour. Please don't put so much pressure on yourself." What just happened? That was the formal piece. Nerves are only natural. Now, there's no one watching us. Why don't you just take one of these sheets of scrap paper, write casually, whatever comes to mind, just to loosen the wrist. Relax the muscles a bit. The master lifts his head. He looks around the empty, silent hall, and then at the ordinary, slightly rough piece of practice paper his disciple is offering. He lets out a deep, deep sigh. Yes, no one is watching anymore. Anyway, it's not the formal test now. Anyway, those eyes, which held the power to decide his life or death, they are all gone. With this sigh, the master's tightly strung shoulders instantly collapse. That tangible, crushing weight vanishes. He no longer bothers to correct his posture. He no longer tries to consciously regulate his breath. With complete nonchalance, even a sense of what the hell, he picks up the brush again. No daimyo, no samurai, no literati, no judgment, no life or death. Just him, and the goat hair brush in his hand. The master dips the brush casually into the ink pool, and then, on a plain sheet of practice paper, begins to move his hand without any particular thought. In this moment, he forgets that he is writing. He forgets that he must produce the world's greatest calligraphy. His mind has entered that profound state of mush, in no mind so highly valued in Eastern philosophy. When the audience is removed, the self, that entity so full of vanity, fear, and defensiveness, dissolves right along with them. The brush tip glides across the paper, producing a continuous, light, rhythmic, crisp sound. It is no longer a person controlling the brush. It is life for said self, flowing freely across the paper. In what feels like a single breath, the 4 characters are complete. Half an hour passes. The daimyo, with his entourage, returns to the great hall. When the daimyo's eyes fall upon the ordinary practice paper lying on the floor, his entire body freezes. The literati behind him gasp in stunned, disbelieving wonder. Those 4 characters are like iron hooks in silver strokes, carrying a spirit that swallows 10,000 miles. Every trace of ink is saturated with an incredibly loose, relaxed, yet immensely powerful tension. It seems not so much written as it has grown, naturally, organically, from the very fibers of the paper. It is an absolute masterpiece, destined for the ages. The daimyo looks at the master in utter disbelief. You wrote this just now? Why is the spirit in this piece so much more majestic, so much more powerful than anything you have ever written before? The master stands there, gazing at the divine work he created without conscious intent, and in a flash of profound realization, he understands. He finally sees that what destroyed him was never the brush, the ink, or the paper. It was not a decline in his skill. It was the fear of being watched, lodged in his own mind. When he placed his attention on how others will see me, his energy was fragmented and shattered. But the moment he believed this was only a practice, with no audience, the moment he completely forgot himself, his true, magnificent power was able to fully manifest. The story, which unfolded in a great hall centuries ago, is being replayed in your mind every single day. The reason you are so tired, the reason your shoulders ache so much, the reason your sleep is so shallow, is because your mind is filled, row after row, with virtual daily OS supervisors. You bring them to your office. When you draft any mail, you are inwardly pre-playing your boss's critical gaze, and so you delete and rewrite, and delete again. A simply mail that should take 5 minutes drains a full hour of your life force. You bring them to dinner gatherings as you pick up a piece of food or tell a joke. The audience in your mind is grading you against a ruthless standard. Was that graceful? Did they find me funny? Did that comment I just made expose my ignorance? You even bring this phantom audience into this bed, which is meant to be your one truly safe space. You toss and turn in the deep night, because those imaginary eyes are still fixed on you, interrogating, did you perform well enough today? Does the position you've attained in society warrant the respect of others? You have never truly been alone. You are perpetually on a stage, perpetually waiting for an audience that doesn't even exist to give you a score. In this never-ending impression management, you have exhausted all the energy you possess as a single teardrop of water, as a free and bound gust of wind. Now, it is time to drive them out of your mind. One by one, please take a deep, slow breath in. Feel this cool air travel through your nostrils. Reaching into the deepest recess of your brain. Imagine your brain as a vast, extremely dark, vintage theater. In the audience seats of this theater sit all those shadowy figures who make you feel fear, anxiety, and the need to please. They are hidden in the darkness, and they are staring fixedly at you on the stage. Now, as you release a long, drawn-out exhale, sigh, nature, imagine the lights in this theater beginning to go out, one after another, row by row, and as the lights go out, those oppressive, shadowy figures in the audience dissolve, like in sculptures struck by a powerful wind. They lose their form, crumbling rapidly, melting into wisps of smoke, vanishing into the thin air. Breathe in, the theater grows darker. Breathe out. Those judging eyes, those harsh demands, are completely swept away. The entire world, the entire theater, now holds only you. The heavy doors have been firmly locked. No one can enter. No gaze can penetrate this boundless darkness. Feel this ultimate sense of security, this feeling of no one is watching you. Bring your awareness to your face. This is the most exhausted mask you wear every day to face the world. Feel your eyelids. During the day, you used your eyes to convey focus, to appease, to defend. But now, no one is watching. Allow your eyeballs to sink, heavy and deep, into their sockets. Let the tiny muscles around your eyes tight from so much forced smiling melt like warm butter, spreading out, soft and formless. Feel your lips. You no longer need to maintain that socially acceptable, pleasing smile, nor do you need to press your lips together in a show of strength. Allow your upper and lower lips to part slightly. Let the corners of your mouth drop naturally, yielding to gravity. In this darkness, your face is allowed to hold no expression at all. It can be blank, slack, even lifeless. What an extravagant luxury this freedom is. Tell yourself, I don't need to perform for anyone right now. I am not responsible for making anyone satisfied. I am simply a living creature. Breathing. Here. Let this wave of release continue to travel downwards. Let it reach your spine, that column of bone, held rigid and defensive for so long, from the chronic sense of being watched. Now, in this soft bed, in this darkness free of any supervisor, you no longer need to maintain the posture of being upright, alert, and ready for combat at any moment. Breathe in deeply. As you slowly exhale, imagine the bones of your spine releasing, one vertebra at a time, like a chain being unclasped, loosening completely. Your back softens and sinks down, surrendering its entire weight, completely, undoubtedly, to the mattress that supports you. You are like that calligraphy master in the great hall. Believing the daimyo has left, you have finally set down that heavy brush called self-justification. You are no longer an artwork that needs to be exhibited. You are simply you, in this intensely private space, free of all judgment. Time loses its markings. You listen to the endless rain outside the window. You feel the rise and fall of your chest with each breath. You have not only driven away the noise from the outside world, you have even driven away that inner self that sat in your mind, constantly monitoring your every move. You are experiencing an unprecedented stillness, deep as the ocean floor. Your energy is no longer radiating outwards to maintain an illusion. It is flowing back, slowly, steadily, gathering inside you, condensing into a profoundly deep, unmovable undercurrent. You feel that as long as you can stay in this state of machine, of no mind, as long as you can stay in this dark, safe space with no audience, you are safe. But what happens when the long, dark night finally passes? When harsh sunlight pierces through the curtains once more, when the slot door is kicked open, violently, by the raging torrent of reality. When you have no choice but to leave this safe room, and you must walk out, under the scrutiny of countless eyes, to face a real confrontation, one that might even be a matter of survival or ruin. When you are forced onto the ultimate stage, facing a reality that draws a sharp blade against you with brutal ferocity, can you still hold on to this magnificent power of silence? When retreat is no longer an option, how do you transform this ultimate state of emptiness into the most lethal weapon? One capable of winning the battle without a single blow being struck. When that locked door is kicked violently open by the torrent of reality, when retreat is no longer an option, and you must leave that perfectly safe, judgment-free dark room, and walk out under the scrutiny of countless eyes, when you must face a real, genuine confrontation, one that might even be a matter of survival or ruin, what do you do then? Please, maintain this very slow, very long, drawn-out breathing. Do not let the word confrontation cause your shoulders to instinctively tense and rise again. In this auditory world of high contrast light and shadow, I will not ask you to put on heavy armor, nor will I hand you any sharp weapon, because in this most supreme game of energetic leverage, the deadliest weapon is precisely your own utterly emptied, completely unguarded absolute focus. Let your awareness settle, slowly, down into the depths of your lower belly. In Eastern martial arts and meditation, this place is called the Tanden, the field of elixir. Imagine your body as an hourglass. The thoughts that were swirling so madly in your mind, the impulses to flee, to fight back, are now like fine, golden sand, trickling down along your spine, bit by bit, until they have all settled completely into your lower belly. Your upper body becomes incredibly light, almost hollow and empty, while your lower body becomes as heavy and deeply rooted as an ancient tree. Feel this shift in your center of gravity. When you drop your center of mass completely, no gale from the outside world, no matter how fierce, can uproot you, carrying this unshakable, grounded steadiness. Let us rewind the film of time once more, to a street in Japan, 300 years ago. It is a blindingly bright summer noon. The sun pours down like white-hot flame onto the bustling streets of the Edo period. The air is thick with the acrid smells of dust and sweat. A.T. Master, dressed in simple, plain hemp cloth, is walking quietly along the side of the road, his head lowered. He is an utterly ordinary practitioner of Chado, the way of tea. In his entire life, he has done only one thing: boil water and make tea. His hands have only ever held the light, delicate bamboo tea whisk. They have never touched a cold, lethal blade. But at this particular corner of fate, he accidentally bumps into a drunken, masterless samurai Ronin. The Ronin is a giant of a man, with a brutish, fleshy face. A razor-sharp, long no-dachi greatsword is thrust through his sash. On these violent, saturated streets, a samurai's honor is not to be trifled with. The Ronin grabs the tea master by the collar, hurls him brutally to the dusty ground, and roars, his voice dripping with arrogance and murderous intent to low-born. Blind fool! You dare to collide with a samurai? I challenge you to a duel. Right there, in that open ground, you'll wash away this insult with your life. The air around them freezes solid. All the bystanders scatter in terror, retreating into the dark shadows of nearby alleys, watching with eyes full of pity, yet laced with a hint of morbid excitement. This impossibly lopsided execution. The tea master picks himself up slowly from the ground, brushing the dust from his clothes. He does not beg for mercy. He does not protest in anger, because he knows, on this street ruled by brute, senseless law, words are utterly useless. He simply gives the Ronin a very calm, deep bow, accepting this duel to the death. He asks only that the Ronin grant him half an hour's time to bid a final farewell to a friend. The Ronin agrees with a roar of arrogant laughter. The tea master takes a few back alleys and arrives at a martial arts dojo. He seeks out the only swordsmanship master he knows. Kneeling before the master, he speaks in a perfectly level voice. I am a man who knows only the way of tea. In half an hour, I will die by a swordsman's blade. I have come to ask you, as a man utterly without martial skill, how can I, in my final moments, die with a little less ugliness? How can I die with a measure of dignity? The sword master looks upon his old friend facing death, yet his face is serene as a placid lake and a flicker of deep respect crosses his eyes. He is silent for a long moment. Then he speaks. Slowly, you do not need to learn how to hold a sword. You could not learn it now anyway. In half an hour's time, when you stand before that Ronin, there's only one thing you need to do. Take that absolute, undivided focus you have used for half a lifetime to make tea, and bring all of it forth. Treat this duel as the very last tea gathering of your life. Do not think of life. Do not think of death. Do not think of how powerful your opponent is. 照我说, do not think of what the onlookers will think of you. You must simply, with utter focus, perfectly complete every single action the moments before your death. That is all. Half an hour passes. On the empty dueling ground, the sun is still brutally hot. The Ronin has long been waiting, pacing with impatience. He grips his massive, several-foot-long greatsword with both hands. The blade glints in the fierce sunlight, giving off an intensely dazzling, bloodthirsty, cold gleam. His muscles are coiled tight. His eyes are vicious. He is like a starving wolf, poised to spring upon its prey and tear it apart in the very first second. He intends to cleave this frail tea master into with a single stroke. The tea master arrives, precisely on time. He is still wearing that simple, plain hemp cloth robe. He does not even carry a weapon in his hands. He walks to a point 10 paces from the Ronin and stops. No plea for mercy, no trembling, no scream of despair. The tea master simply stands there, in utter stillness. And then, before the eyes of the spectators hidden in the shadows, a scene unfolds that is incredibly strange, incredibly slow, yet carries a suffocating, crushing pressure. The tea master closes his eyes slightly. His breathing instantly becomes as fine and long as a strand of silk. He raises his hands and begins to untie the long, thin silk cord he uses to bind the sleeves of his kimono. It is an action he has performed thousands of times, a necessary, utterly ordinary gesture done before preparing tea, to prevent his wide sleeves from dipping into the tea bowl. In this final, ultimate moment between life and death, the tea master pours his entire life, his entire soul, into this thin silk cord. He slowly passes the cord over his left shoulder. The movement is gentle, as if it were not rough hemp, but a soft breeze. Then, he passes it over his right shoulder, crossing it behind his back. Every single one of his movements is absolutely precise. There is not a single unnecessary tremor, not the slightest leakage of emotion. The sound of the silk cord sliding against the fabric of his robe, in the deathly silent dueling ground. This soft sound somehow rises above the heavy rush of the surrounding wind. In the Ronin's eyes, the previously insignificant tea master seems to be transforming. Right before him, the Ronin stares intently at the tea master's hands, watching the knot being tied. He is desperately searching for an opening in the tea master's movements. Some gap, some flicker, anything that reveals a fear of death. But there is nothing, absolutely nothing. The tea master's movements are far too perfect, far too focused. It is as if he does not care at all about the greatsword hovering in front of him, ready to cleave his head from his body at any moment. He does not care about the burning stares from the onlookers around him. His entire world has been reduced to one single thing tying this knot perfectly. This absolute focus is what martial arts masters call muken, no gap, no opening. When a person gathers 100% of their energy and focuses it utterly on the action of the present moment, they create an invisible, yet absolutely indestructible force field of energy around their entire body. As the tea master pulls the final loop of the knot, incredibly slowly, incredibly perfectly tight, the Ronin is suddenly struck by a crushing, overwhelming pressure, the likes of which he has never experienced before. Rushing towards him like an avalanche, the Ronin's breath becomes rapid and dragged. His pupils constrict violently. In his hallucination, the tea master before him is no longer a thin, frail old man. He is a colossal, immovable, wrathful deity Aethido towering above, looking down upon all mortals, the silent pressure emanating from the tea master born from having completely relinquished all concern for life or death. Victory or defeat presses down on the Ronin's chest like an invisible mountain. To his horror, the Ronin realizes he cannot draw his sword. His palms are slick with cold sweat. The hilt of the sword feels impossibly slippery. He feels that if he dares to take even one step forward, he will be instantly swallowed whole by that unfathomably deep, silent power. A single drop of cold sweat falls from the Ronin's forehead, landing with a silent splash on the burning hot dust. Clang! The sharp, clear ring of metal. The terrifying greatsword slips from the Ronin's trembling hands and clatters to the ground. This ferocious, battle-hardened swordsman, Before this tea master who hasn't even lifted a finger suffers a complete and total collapse of his psychological defenses. His knees buckle. Thud. He falls to his knees on the ground, pressing his forehead deep into the dirt. His voice shakes with the desperate plea, Master. I was blind. I failed to see your sword energy. It is too terrifying. I yield. I begged you. Please forgive my insolence. The tea master slowly opens his eyes. He looks at the Ronin, kneeling on the ground, and then he looks down at the perfectly tied silk cord in his own hands. He doesn't say a word. He simply gives a slight bow, turns around, and walks away back into the dusty street, continuing on to his next tea gathering. Victory. Without a single blow being struck. This is the terrifying power of absolute focus. Now, bring your awareness back from that sun-scorched dueling ground. Bring it back here, to this dark room, in which you are now deeply sinking. Recall, in your own life. Or what is your Ronin swordsman? Is it a brutally demanding performance review you have to face tomorrow morning? Is it a hostile competitor, just waiting to see you stumble? Or is it a public speech you have to give at a major event? One that might determine the entire course of your future. In the lead up to these duels, what have you been doing? Are you like those third-rate swordsmen who wouldn't last 3 seconds on the dueling ground before the sword is even drawn? You've already run through 10,000 catastrophic scenarios of your own defeat in your mind? You have scattered your energy into countless empty, illusory fantasies. What if I mess up the presentation? What if my boss interrupts me? What if they think I'm not professional enough? You have placed your entire focus on that Ronin sitting across from you, and on those spectators standing in the shadows. You are too desperate to win. You are too terrified of losing. Your heart is filled with fear of the future and a fixation on the outcome. And this is the greatest gap in your defenses, the biggest leak in your energy. When you walk onto that battlefield carrying this incredibly weak, incredibly scattered energy, you don't need anyone else to defeat you. Your own panicked eyes, your own stiff, rigid movements, have already announced your cowardice to the entire world. What you lack is not better techniques. It's not a more perfect PowerPoint. It's not a sharper wit. What you lack is the tea master's silk cord used to bind his sleeves. You need to take all that energy scattered across the past and the future, scattered across the gazes of other people, and without any mercy, pull it all back. Gather it entirely into this one action, in this very moment. Let us, here in the safe, enveloping darkness, do a deep practice of gathering and consolidating your energy. Please, take all of your attention and, like a high-intensity laser beam, focus it directly on your breath. Feel the sensation of each inhalation and exhalation. Right now, do not think about where this air is coming from. Do not think about whether the next breath will be enough. The single most important thing in your life, right now, is to feel this current of slightly cool air, how it brushes against the inner wall of your nostril in this very instant. Inhale. Feel the temperature of the air. Feel the subtle, tiny expansion of your ribs as it enters your chest. Exhale. Feel the warm air being gently pushed out of your body. Feel your chest slowly, softly fall back. Treat this as if it were the very last breath of your life. Incredibly slow, incredibly solemn, without any stray thought. If in the process of breathing, a worry about tomorrow suddenly springs up in your mind, or the echo of something you said earlier, do not fight against them. Imagine you are the tea master, in the middle of tying his silk cord. Those distracting thoughts are the Ronin, his sword raised, his face a twisted mask of ferocity. You do not look at him. You do not engage with him. You are not intimidated by him. You simply, with absolute serenity, continue tying your cord. You simply, with absolute serenity, gently bring your attention back, once again, to the thread of coolness at the tip of your nose. One perfect inhalation, one perfect exhalation. When you pour 100% of your energy into a single, minuscule action in the present moment, a strange and wonderful physical transformation happens inside your body. Feel this, that restless, anxious, panicked energy that was previously racing wildly through your chest and brain is now, within this extreme focus, being rapidly compressed and refined. It follows the channels of your body, sinks all the way down, and finally settles and gathers, steady and sure, in your tandem. Your breathing becomes unprecedentedly deep and long. Your heartbeat becomes like the sound of a temple bell's low, powerful, tearing thick, resonant hum. The energy of timidity you carried dissolves. In its place rises a silent pressure, a feeling that even if the sky were to fall, you would still be able to steadily, calmly, lift a cup of tea. When you walk into tomorrow's meeting room, or step up to tomorrow's negotiation table, carrying this state, you don't need to puff yourself up with false bravado. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't even need to speak right away. You only need to do what the tea master did. Pull out your chair with absolute focus. Sit down with absolute focus. Open the folder before you with absolute focus. And then, from within that incredibly steady, calm breath, lift your head and quietly, gently, look into the other person's eyes. In that moment, the other person will feel, from your flawless, gapeless movements, from the depths of your unfathomable gaze, an incredibly powerful gravitational field. They will discover that their aggressive probes and provocations, when faced with your towering, silent iceberg, seem utterly laughable and powerless. You did not fight, but you have already won. Because true power has never been about how much you can conquer outwardly. It is about, inwardly, to what degree you can completely, fully, utterly, own this very moment of your own existence. Rest deeply now in this powerful, full-bodied sensation of energy flowing back to you. Let this energy circulate slowly through your limbs and bones, mending those nerves frayed and torn by modern life. You feel you have become immensely strong. You have learned non-interference. You have learned to see others as empty boats. You have learned to let go of the baggage of the past. You have even learned to use absolute focus to overweigh a powerful enemy. You have built an unassailable fortress of energy around yourself. But what if, on the opposite bank of that river, in the deepest heart of the territory you are so fiercely defending, there is nothing there that actually needs protecting? What is the dignity, the status, the validation that you poured all your strength into fighting for, guarding with such absolute focus? Why, from the very beginning, nothing but an illusion floating on the water's surface? When a breeze blows, and the reflection shatters, and you discover that the prize you hunted your entire life, were even willing to be broken for, never even existed. How will you face that vast, suffocating void? Do not rush to escape from this emptiness. Please, keep your eyes closed. Let your breath maintain that rhythm, long and fine as a silk thread. In this auditory world, now fully enveloped by low-key lighting, let the harsh sunlight from the dueling ground slowly fade away, blending, blurring, into a profoundly deep, profoundly ancient, dark blue night sky. Imagine your awareness is following a single drop of rain, sliding from a leaf, drifting downwards in an eternal, pink spiral. You are descending into the heart of an incredibly still, primeval, black forest. There are no paths here. No wind, only an intensely thick, damp cold fog, heavy with the scent of decaying leaves and pine resin. In the very center of the forest lies a deep pool. Formed by nature itself, the water is black. Black as a flawless piece of obsidian. Bottomless, and piercingly cold, in this profoundly high contrast darkness. The only source of light is a perfect full moon, suspended high in the night sky, that utterly cold, pure, silver-white moonlight threads its way through the dense, overlapping black canopy of the trees. Like an exquisitely sharp sword of light, it cuts straight through the mist and falls with absolute precision onto the very center of that deep pool. The surface of the water is perfectly still. Not a single ripple disturbs it. That silver full moon is replicated flawlessly on the surface of this obsidian mirror, one above, one below. Two full moons, in this silent, ancient forest, engage in a silent, wordless exchange, a gazing that has crossed millions of millennia. Then, in the midst of this stillness, where even time itself seems to have solidified, a sudden, sharp, frantic, chaotic noise erupts from the black canopy of the surrounding trees. It is the sound of branches violently shaking and scraping, mixed with an incredibly high-pitched, anxious shrieking. A troop of wild monkeys, swinging on rough vines, land in a chaotic flurry of scratching and colliding bodies on the bluestone rocks at the edge of the deep pool. The lead, old monkey, by purest chance, glances into the deep pool. In that very instant, his pupils contract violently. Every hair on his body stands on end, bristling with a terror beyond words. He points at the surface of the water and lets out a scream of utter horror. The other monkeys crowd around, and as their eyes follow the old monkey's trembling finger to the round, cold, silver light emitting object in the center of the deep pool, the entire troop is thrown into a state of complete, frantic panic. The moon has fallen into the water. The moon has fallen into the deep pool. In the monkey's understanding, the moon is the most sacred, indispensable source of light in the sky. If the moon drowns in the water, the world will be plunged into eternal darkness. A monumental anxiety, a sense of life or death urgency instantly hijacks the brains of this troop of wild monkeys. They must retrieve the moon. They must take immediate action to save this thing of such absolute, vital importance. And so begins a rescue effort of staggering desperation and profound absurdity. The old monkey hangs himself, upside down, from the strongest, thickest branch overhanging the pool, the veins on his legs bulging with the immense strain. A second monkey clambers down the old monkey's body, gripping his hands tightly. A third monkey climbs down the second monkey, on and on. They link their bodies, forming an incredibly precarious, swaying chain of life, suspended above the icy, dark water, the little monkey dangling at the very bottom. More than half his body is now submerged in the freezing water of the deep pool. The bone-piercing cold penetrates his fur like countless icy needles, sinking into his very marrow. His teeth are chattering violently. His arms flail desperately as he tries to reach that silver, glowing soulmate. So agonizingly close. Faster. Go lower. I'm almost there. The little monkey screams in despair from within the icy water. The monkeys above him have reached the absolute limit of their physical strength. Their fingers, from the death grip they have on each other's flesh, are starting to eat blood. Their joints are making dangerously ominous cracking sounds. Their brains, starved of oxygen, are going bleak. But they dare not let go, because they are utterly convinced that they are doing something incredibly noble, absolutely necessary, They are saving the moon. They are preventing the collapse of the entire world. Finally, the little monkey dangling at the very bottom, summoning what feels like the final shred of his life's energy, plunges both hands into the very deepest part of the pool and grabs, with desperate, pushing force, towards that silver, full moon. Splash! A tremendous spray of water erupts. The perfect, obsidian black mirror surface is violently torn apart the moment the little monkey's hands close. The moon in the water is not retrieved. Instead, it shatters into countless shards of shimmering silver light, tiny, fragmented scales of brilliance. In the violently churning black water, they break apart in an instant, vanishing completely into the boundless darkness and murk. The little monkey freezes. He stares at his empty, purple, ice-cold hands and lets out a wail of the most profound despair. At the exact same moment, the old branch at the very top, having finally, irrevocably, reached its breaking point under the combined, desperate weight of the entire troop. Crack! A loud, sharp snap. The branch breaks. The entire chain of living bodies instantly collapses. All the monkeys plunge into the icy, muddy pool in a tangle of despairing shrieks. They flail wildly in the water, choking and coughing as the freezing water fills their lungs. Their fur plastered with the thick, black mud churned up from the bottom. They have exhausted every ounce of their life force. They have endured unimaginable terror and physical agony. In the end, they have retrieved nothing, and they have left themselves bruised, battered, and utterly broken, just as they struggle to the shore and collapse. Sprawled on the moss-covered rocks, utterly hopeless, convinced the world is about to end, the oldest monkey, from sheer, utter exhaustion, accidentally rolls over and ends up lying flat on his back. His gaze travels upwards, beyond the black canopy of the trees, through the now slowly dissipating mist, and into that immensely deep blue, boundless, infinite night sky. A perfectly round, impossibly serene, cold, silver light radiating full moon, hangs quietly, compassionately, in the heavens. It did not fall. It had never fallen. It had been there all along, illuminating this forest, illuminating this troop of monkeys who had pushed themselves to the brink of death. For a mere, illusory reflection, the old monkey looks at the real moon in the sky. Then he looks back at the pool, where the water is slowly settling, the reflection of the false moon beginning to reassemble itself, and he lets out a sigh that is infinitely weary, infinitely hollow. Now, gently, very slowly, draw your awareness up and away from that primeval forest, steeped in despair and sudden, dawning realization. Let your hearing return to this soft bed where you are lying. Right now, feel your hands. Feel those 10 fingers that, in this moment, are holding onto nothing at all, in this endless, frantic salvaging operation called modern life. Have you not, too, been one of those monkeys, hanging upside down over the deep pool, desperately trying to scoop up the moon's reflection in the water? Think back. On all the different social media apps, you constantly pull down to refresh. Every few minutes, you check to see if anyone has liked the post you made, if anyone has left a comment. When that red notification number increases, you feel a fleeting, hollow thrill. When the number stalls, you feel a gnawing, inexplicable anxiety and loss. Think back at those social dinners and in those social circles that make you feel so deeply uncomfortable. You force a smile and mold yourself into someone you're not, just to fit the topic of conversation. You are desperately trying to grasp those things called connections, trying to maintain that illusion in the eyes of others that you are sociable, successful, respectable. You are like that little monkey, dangling at the very bottom, half your body plunged into freezing water. You are shivering with cold. You are so tired you are about to break. Your hands are grasping wildly into empty space. You believe that if you can just get more likes, if you can just be accepted into that higher status circle, if you can just make everyone think you are perfect, you can pull up your moon. You can fill that vast black hole inside you. But what is the truth? The truth is this: the you in the eyes of others, the judgments, likes, titles, and labels they give you is always a reflection shimmering on the surface of the deep pool. It is refracted light, bent by other people's moods, their perceptions, even their casual, momentary boredom. It carries absolutely no solid weight. When you exhaust yourself to please others, when you change yourself to fit into a circle that was never really yours, when a single word of dismissal from someone else robs you of an entire night's sleep, you are trying to catch the moon in the water with your bare hands. The harder you try, the more violently the surface shatters. The more you cling, the faster that phantom sense of validation dissolves. In the end, you are left with nothing but hands full of ice, a body caked in mud, and nerves drained utterly dry. And what exhausts you most is not even the process of grasping itself. It's that deadly, deep-seated belief lodged in your heart: I must catch it, or I cannot survive. You have come to believe, mistakenly, that if you lose that shimmering reflection on the water, you are not liked by everyone. If you are no longer that glamorous, shiny character, then you, as a person, have completely lost all value. Your life will be plunged into absolute darkness. But, dear friend, right here, in this utterly private darkness, I invite you to do what that old monkey did. Lying on his back, very, very slowly, lift your gaze away from that icy, deep pool. Look up. Look inwards. Look into the deepest, innermost core of your own life. In the highest, ultimate teaching of Zen meditation, the truth that cannot be spoken in words is this: you were never the one who needed to retrieve the moon. You are that full moon, suspended high in the night sky itself, your true nature, your intrinsic worth, the complete and broken wholeness you possess as a singular, unique, living being in this universe, has been perfectly whole and complete from the very moment you were born. It does not need to be validated by any external reflection. It does not need anyone's light to illuminate it, and it will absolutely not fall into the murky, muddy water just because someone else casts a vicious judgment your way. Now, we will perform an extremely deep release, targeting the very bodily memory of outward grasping. Please, bring your full, undivided attention to your forearms, your wrists, and your 10 fingers. Over the long years, these muscle groups have been held in a state of subtle, hidden, chronic spasm, the perpetual, low-level readiness to grab hold of something. Take a deep breath in. As you inhale, imagine you are channeling your awareness as a current of incredibly warm, soothing liquid, pouring it into your arms. And now, as you exhale, very, very slowly, very long, in your heart, give yourself a clear, deliberate command: let go. Imagine the bones of your fingers beginning to soften, bit by bit. The veins on the back of your hands, held tight for so long, begin to smooth out and lie flat. Your hands, those hands that have flailed in the icy water for so long, bleeding from gripping so desperately, in this moment, finally, completely, open up. You release the illusory likes on social media. You release the social circle that never truly embraced you. You release the compulsion to prove to that one specific person that you are good enough. Splash. A sound. Imagine all those fixations you had been clutching so tightly, sliding through your opened fingers, falling heavily down into the abyss. Feel this loss. Yes, it is a loss. But after losing these heavy, cold, illusory things, what you feel is an immense, overwhelming relief. A lightness so profound your very pores are shivering with the release. Now, let this releasing energy move upwards, reaching your eyeballs. When we chase after reflections, our gaze habitually looks downwards, fixed intensely on the water's surface, tight with anxiety and the strain of trying to focus. Once more, breathe in deeply. Breathe out slowly. Allow your eyeballs, beneath your closed eyelids, to completely relinquish their focus. Imagine that your gaze is no longer to sharp, piercing rays. Instead, it diffuses, becoming a vast field of soft, gentle starlight, spreading upwards towards the infinitely high, boundless night sky. You are no longer looking at the reflection in the water. You are using your entire being to feel the real, full moon, resting in your own heart. It is a physical sensation of being utterly, completely full. The light of this full moon is not harsh or blinding. It is a constant, wide, incredibly soft, silver white glow. It ignites from deep within your chest, slowly illuminating your internal organs, softly lighting up every single one of your weary nerves. When you awaken to the realization that you are, yourself, inherently whole and complete, you no longer need to grasp for anything externally. You can still socialize, you can still work, you can still love. But it is no longer the desperate salvaging born of a sense of lack. It is simply because your inner moonlight is so abundant. It naturally overflows its boundaries. If others liked you, it is their good fortune. If others misunderstand you, it is but a ripple on the water's surface. What does that have to do with the moon? Your body now feels incredibly light. It is as if you are floating in this silver, luminous sea that belongs entirely to you, free of any impurity. That modern world, so full of vanity, fear, and exhaustion, has been left far, far behind, tens of thousands of light years away. You feel a profound, complete peace. You no longer need to do anything. You only need to be yourself. But how you rest in this peace of no longer chasing outwardly? What if, from the very depths of your heart, a very faint, very sharp, chipping sound suddenly arises? What if you already know you don't need to retrieve the moon from the water, but you turn your gaze upon yourself, and you see that this moon of yours is covered in ugly, pockmarked craters? What if you find yourself filled with character flaws, an unbearable past, and so many cracks you want to hide away? When you try to accept yourself, but find that the true self looks like a rough, worthless, ugly stone, how do you face the self-loathing carved deep into your very mirror? How do you face that cruel chisel, intent on sculpting you into a perfect, flawless Buddha in this suffocating emptiness? When you have finally given up chasing the moon in the water, and instead, by the faint light of your heart, look inwards to examine the true self, what is it that you see in this dark auditory chamber? Do not run away. Let your gaze, like the razor-sharp shadows on a high-contrast film, project, without reservation, onto that stone within your heart. What you see, is it a rough, scarred, even mud-splattered, ugly rock? You see the humiliating cowardice in your own character. You see those clumsy, always a beat behind reactions in social situations. You see your own imperfect body, The fine lines etched at the corners of your eyes by anxiety and too many late nights. You see the countless lies you told out of vanity. You see the countless moments you messed everything up because of impulse. Society, the workplace, even the self-improvement tutorials flooding your screen are all feeding you a constant, brittle, brainwashing message you are not good enough. You need to learn more communication skills. You need more certificates. You need to package yourself to be more polished, more smooth, more emotionally intelligent. You believe it, utterly, and so, you began, frantically, to add layers on top of your own rough stone. You buy gold leaf and try to paste it over your pitted surface, pretending to be a perfect persona. You put on magnificent armor to conceal your inner fragility. You memorize scripts for high emotional intelligence, trying to seem like you handle every social situation with effortless grace. You have become a worn-out, exhausted plasterer, every day troweling thick layers of mud called external expectations onto yourself, frantically trying to sculpt yourself into a radiant, magnificent Buddha statue. But, in the deep quiet of the night, when that fake gold leaf peels away, when you feel the caked-on mud drying, cracking, and constricting you so tightly you can barely breathe, the self-loathing carved deep in your marrow rises up and drowns you like a tide. You feel so tired. You feel like the true you is nothing but that worthless, rotten stone, utterly unworthy of anyone's love, utterly undeserving of the beauty in this world. Now, take a deep, deep breath in. Feel this air as it enters your chest, the chest that has tightened under the weight of your own self-judgment. And then, carried on a long, drawn-out sigh. Slowly, breathe out. In this moment of profound weariness, let us shift the film of time back several hundred years to a mountain quarry. We are going to listen to a sound of the utmost monotony, yet one capable of shattering all illusion. It is an oppressively hot, humid dusk. The air is thick with the acrid smell of limestone dust and the sour, heavy stench of the stonecutter's sweat. The last rays of the setting sun cut through the dim workshop like a blunt, dark red blade, casting immensely long, deep shadows across the stone chip-littered dirt floor. In this workshop lies an old stonecutter, well past 70. His entire life has been spent in communion with cold, unyielding stone. His hands are crisscrossed with deep cracks, like knife-carved gullies. Thick, heavy calluses have left him with almost no sense of touch. But the moment his hands close around an iron chisel and a wooden mallet, he can hear the breathing deep inside the stone. On this day, an exceedingly arrogant and wealthy merchant arrives at the workshop. Behind him, several strong men, using thick hemp ropes, drag in an enormous, monstrously ugly stone. The merchant bought it for practically nothing from a pile of waste material at the foot of the mountain. The stone's shape is not just strange, it is freakish. Half jutting out, half caved in, its surface is covered in weather-beaten cracks and ugly black blotches. It is, by all appearances, the lowest grade of stone, the most hopeless, irredeemable piece of garbage imaginable. Pointing at this hideous rock, a flicker of mockery and malicious challenge in his voice, the merchant says to the old stonecutter, "I have heard you are the most miraculous craftsman for 100 miles around. I demand that you take this useless piece of stone and carve from it the most perfect, the most solemn, majestic statue of Amida Wyas Buddha. If you fail, you must smash your own signabird to pieces." The old stonecutter's young apprentice, standing to the side, flushes scarlet with indignation. He glares at the ugly rock and hisses under his breath to his master. "This is absolutely outrageous. This stone is nothing but waste material. Its texture is so poor. Its shape is so distorted. How could a Buddha possibly be carved from it? Let's refuse him." But the old stonecutter says nothing. He hobbles slowly towards the huge, ugly boulder. He stretches out his hands gnarled, like dried, withered wood, and begins to stroke the stone's rough, cold surface. With an excruciating slowness, light and shadow play gently across his eyelids. He closes his eyes, as though, through his fingertips, he is listening to the stone's incredibly faint, fragile heartbeat. After a very long while, the old stonecutter opens his eyes. There is no anger in them, only a profound, immeasurable compassion. He turns his head and speaks to the merchant, in a voice as flat and neutral as water. Very well. In 3 years' time, come back for your Buddha. From that day forward, a new sound fills the workshop, a profoundly monotonous, profoundly solitary sound. Ting, ting. It is the sound of iron chisel biting into stone, wooden mallet striking iron chisel. In the low-key lighting of his workspace, the old stonecutter, his torso bare, works by the dim glow of an oil lamp. One strike, another strike. He does not do what other craftsmen would do. He does not try to use clay to fill in the stone's hollows. He does not try to use paint to hide the black blemishes on its surface. His work is only subtraction. Ting, ting. A burst of stone chips into a shower of sparks. The sharp, jutting corner is chiseled away. The apprentice is utterly baffled. Every day, he watches his master make the stone smaller and smaller, thinner and thinner. Unable to contain himself any longer, he asks Master, "This stone was already incomplete, already flawed. Why do you keep chiseling pieces away? How in the world do you plan to put the Buddha statue into this rotten stone?" The old stonecutter does not pause the mallet in his hand. He simply answers, his voice even, perfectly synchronized with the rhythm of his breath. "My child, I have never once thought of putting the Buddha into this stone." Ting, ting. Another layer of mud-stained outer skin is chipped away, falling heavily to the ground. The Buddha was originally already inside this stone. It has always been there. What I am doing is simply chipping away, piece by piece, all those parts that do not belong to the Buddha. 3 years pass. When that arrogant merchant steps back into the workshop, he is utterly, completely transfixed by the sight before him. His knees go weak. He almost falls to the ground in a kneeling prostration. The stone, that hideous, deemed worthless piece of waste, is gone. In its place stands a breathtakingly magnificent statue of a Mika-wise Buddha. The Buddha's face is an expression of infinite compassion, boundless tranquility. The old stonecutter, with incredible subtlety and skill, has preserved the natural, internal grain and veins of the stone. Those black blotches, once considered fatal flaws, have now been transformed into the flowing, drifting, ink-washed shadows of the Buddha's robe. The original hollows and depressions have become the deep, quiet folds of the Buddha's robes as he sits in the lotus posture of meditation. This Buddha has not a single trace of any external, added decoration. No gold leaf has been pasted on, no colorful paints applied. It has simply been worked upon by a brutally uncompromising process of subtraction. All that was superfluous has been stripped away, and that completeness, hidden in the very deepest heart of the ugly stone, has been revealed, emerging into the world with an unstoppable, awe-inspiring, majestic power. The merchant and the apprentice stare, utterly spellbound. They finally understand the highest form of sculpting in this world is not piling up clay on the outside. It is mercilessly chiseling away all that is superfluous. Now, Draw your hearing back from that workshop, thick with stone dust. Let that sound of ting, ting, transform within your mind into the steady, rhythmic beating of your own heart. Thump, thump, till, with that rock, discarded in the waste pile. You came into this world covered in scars, imperfections, and the weight of worldly prejudices. All this time, you have been making a fatal, phone, mental mistake. You believed that your Buddha, your confidence, your energy, your inviolable centeredines was some kind of scarce resource. Something you needed, like that apprentice thought, to go out into the world and seek. Painstakingly. Something you had to study desperately to learn. Something you could only acquire through adding. You believed that only when you had finished reading the 100 books on communication skills, when you had attained some high-ranking position, when you could be the life of the dinner party with your effortless eloquence, only then could you become a Buddha that others would respect. But the ultimate wisdom of Zen tells you this: the Buddha was already in the stone. You, yourself, are inherently complete, possessing everything that is whole and perfect. You were born with that absolute stillness. You were born with that presence that wins without a fight. You were born with that unwavering groundedness that needs no one's approval to rest at ease. The reason you appear rough, weak, and filled with self-loathing right now is not because you lack anything. It is because you are wrapped in far too many parts that do not belong to the Buddha. That impulse to anxiously justify yourself the moment you face a misunderstanding, a superfluous stone to be chipped away. Those fake, flattering smiles you force to appease others. Superfluous stone, that obsessive, self-attacking rumination in the deep night. Superfluous stone, that vanity, that desperate need to prove to the world I am strong, is the heaviest, most burdensome waste material of all. You do not need to go searching for energy externally. What you need to do is pick up the chisel named silence and begin the work of subtraction. Silence is the ultimate art of sculpting stillness. Every time you face someone's provocation and manage to hold back a biting retort, a sound of ting, ting rings out in your heart. You have chiseled away a chunk of waste stone called anger. Every time you face an awkward silence and hold back a useless, space-filling comment, ting, ting, you have chiseled away a chunk of waste stone called people-pleasing. Every time you stop the courtroom drama in your head, stop judging yourself, and just allow yourself to be a simple, ordinary human being, achieving nothing, just lying there breathing. For one day, ting, ting, you have chiseled away a chunk of waste stone called perfectionism. No need for addition, only stripping away. When those false, defensive, scattered non-selves are peeled away, layer by layer, the true self within you, as indestructible as a diamond, will naturally, spontaneously radiate a breathtaking, majestic dignity. Now, in this dark room, with no one watching, let us perform an extremely deep sculpting through subtraction, targeting your body and your subconscious. Bring your focus to the space between your eyebrows, that place we habitually furrow tight all day long, trying to project an image of deep thought or just pure anxiety. Breathe in deeply. As you exhale slowly, silently, in your heart, let a single sound resonate: ting, ting. Imagine an incredibly gentle chisel, lightly carving away the knotted bundle of tight muscle at your brow. That chunk of waste stone called anxiety is gently removed. Your forehead instantly becomes incredibly smooth, like a piece of polished marble. Let your awareness travel downwards to your throat and your jaw, the place where countless justifications unlies, prepared to prove yourself, are lodged and stuck. Inhale. Exhale. Ting. Ting. Those weak, desperate to refute words, that gritted teeth defensiveness, transform into stone dust and drift silently downwards. Your jaw releases completely. Your teeth part slightly, your tongue sink, soft and heavy, into the deep pool. You have stripped away the compulsion to explain. Keep moving your awareness downwards, to your shoulders and your chest. This is where you carry the weight of others' expectations. The weight of your own unrealistic, impossible illusion of self-perfection. Take a deep breath in. Let this breath fully, completely, expand your chest. Exhale, with excruciating slowness. Ting. Ting. Imagine a layer of incredibly thick, incredibly hard, stone-like shell, cracking and splitting open across your chest and back, then crumbling and falling away into the abyss. Your posture, that chronic slumping, that defensive hunching of the shoulders, is instantly released. Your heart is no longer wrapped in that thick, suffocating layer of mud. It is exposed, naked, in the safe darkness. Each pulse of its beating now radiates a pure, warm, golden light. Finally, shift your awareness to your entire abdomen and lower body. Inhale. Exhale. Ting. Tang. The social awkwardness that made you feel so trapped and uncomfortable, the muscular memory of always wanting to flee the scene, is completely chiseled away. Your lower body becomes profoundly stable, grounded, as if fused into the very bedrock of the earth. You feel yourself becoming lighter, and yet, simultaneously, becoming immensely dense and heavy. It is a strange and wonderful physical sensation. Having stripped away all the armor you wore to please the world, you discover that you are not left standing there, naked and vulnerable. Instead, your indestructible, diamond-like true body is revealed. You no longer loathe yourself. You embrace those natural cracks and fissures, because you now know those cracks are precisely the places where the light gets in. Those imperfections in your character are the natural, unique grain that makes you this one-of-a-kind Buddha statue. You sit within this stillness that belongs entirely to you. Your breath is even. There is no opening, no crack. You feel that as long as you can stay in this present moment, in this dark room with no past and no future, you are absolutely safe, absolutely complete. And yet, life is always drifting upon a river called time. Here, in this moment, on this bed, you have tasted wholeness. But this wholeness is profoundly fragile, because time is flowing. In the very next breath, tomorrow's sun will rise. Will the regrets of the past, that waste material you have already chiseled away, come back to haunt you like ghosts? And will the anxieties of the future, the fears of aging, sickness, financial ruin, abandonment open their blood-dripping jaws at you from within the mist ahead? When the spatial emptiness can no longer protect you, when you are caught in the vice of past and future terror, when you are hanging from the cliff edge of life and death, and even the single vine of the present moment is about to snap, can your centeredine survive? In that ultimate time trap, how do you find that single drop of honey capable of saving your entire life's energy? In this profound emptiness and stripping away, when you have finally chiseled off all the mud you had caked on yourself to please the world, when you think that by hiding in this present moment, unseen by anyone, you can find eternal safety, in the darkness, time begins to reveal its cruelly sharp, merciless shape. Do not open your eyes. Let your hearing continue to feel its way through this high contrast. Low-key shadow? Imagine you are still lying on that familiar bed. The room is profoundly quiet. So quiet that you can hear the second hand of the old wall clock ticking away, mechanically, tirelessly. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Each tiny sound is amplified infinitely in this empty, dark chamber. Your body, which moments ago felt so light, freed from its social masks, suddenly shivers at this ticking sound. A very secret, hidden shudder seeps out from the very marrow of your bones, because you suddenly realize you cannot stay in this second forever. In the single instant of this breath, today has already become yesterday. And just as you try to grasp this moment's peace, the vast, unknown shadow of tomorrow is already pressing down on your chest. Silent and immense, like a monstrous beast, you try to relax, but your brain, in the deep night, uncontrollably launches into a brutal session of time travel. Your consciousness is forced to race backwards, back to that decision you made 3 years ago that fills you with eternal regret, back to that stupid, humiliating thing you said just yesterday. And then, immediately, your consciousness is violently hurled forward, smashing into the decay and dullness that may await you a decade from now. Into that presentation, you are utterly unprepared for tomorrow morning, into that fragile financial situation that could snap at any moment. You are lying in a physical space of absolute safety, but your soul is being hunted with crazed desperation. Across the wasteland of time, the regrets of the past are chasing you down, unrelenting. The fears of the future are before you, their jaws gaping wide. You are caught between the past and the future, crushed repeatedly by the immense panic of what I have already lost and what I am about to lose. You feel your breath grow short and shallow. Cold sweat traces paths down your forehead, soaking into the pillow. Your heart hammers in your chest like a frenzied drum, beating against a broken membrane, when spatial emptiness can no longer protect you, when time itself becomes an inescapable net. How do you cut off this rushing, unceasing river of time? Let us sink our senses into an incredibly ancient, incredibly perilous Buddhist parable. In this dreamlike vision, there is no warm tea room, no silent canyon, only the most pure, most desperate crisis of survival. It is a barren, lifeless, black wilderness. The sky looks like a scorched photographic negative, and intensely oppressive, dark, blood red. The air is thick with the heavy stench of blood and the dry, acrid smell of dust. A traveler, his clothes in tatters, is running wildly across this wasteland, his body dragging with utter exhaustion. His eyes are wide with a terror beyond words. His lungs heave with a sound like a tearing bellows. Behind him is a ferocious, ravenously hungry tiger, massive in size. You can hear the tiger's deep, earth-shaking growl behind you. You can hear the sound of its razor-sharp claws tearing through the dry, hardened earth. The tiger's unbelievably warm, putrid, fishy breath is almost upon the back of the traveler's neck. This is the countdown of death. This is the relentless pursuer of the past, snapping at his heels. The traveler, summoning the last shred of his strength, runs forward blindly. Suddenly, his foot finds only empty air. The wilderness ahead ends abruptly, a cliff and impossibly deep, bottomless black abyss. Like a great, gaping wound in the earth yawns directly in front of him. Moving too fast, unable to stop his momentum, his body plunges straight over the edge, falling into that dense, dark chasm. Halfway down the face of this immeasurable cliff, the traveler's hands flail wildly in a primal, desperate instinct to survive. By an incredible stroke of luck, his fingers clamp in a death grip around a thick, ancient vine hanging down the cliff face. The force of the sudden stop nearly tears the muscles in his arms. He swings violently in the empty air. A few loose stones, dislodged from the cliff wall, fall into the abyss. He listens, and a very, very long time passes, with no sound of them hitting the bottom. The traveler gasps, his chest heaving, and looks up. The enormous tiger is now crouched at the very edge of the cliff, its monstrous head jutting out. Its eyes glitter with the cruel, yellow-green light in the dark red glow of the sky, and it roars at him, a sound of pure, frustrated rage. Thick, sticky saliva drips from its dagger-like fangs. He cannot go up. Up above is certain, inescapable death and despair. The traveler looks down, towards the bottom of the cliff. By the faintest sliver of dim light, he sees something that instantly freezes the blood in his veins. At the very bottom of the abyss, 4 enormous, brilliantly colored, venomous serpents are coiled. Their triangular heads are raised. Their crimson, forked tongues flicker in the air. Their dead, cold eyes are fixed on him, the prey suspended in mid-air, waiting, with infinite patience, for him to fall. He cannot go down either. Below, he's also certain, inescapable death. The traveler hangs there, suspended in mitre. Cold sweat drenches his clothes. The wind howls through the chasm, as if mocking his utter hopelessness. But he believes this. This is the absolute peak of despair, until his ears pick up a very faint, very rhythmic, gnawing sound. Crunch, crunch, crunch. His eyes, wide with a nail. Dawning horror? Trace the source of the sound. He looks at the base of the vine he is gripping so desperately. There. He sees 2 mice. One is pure white, the other is pitch black. The white mouse represents the daylight hours. The black mouse represents the dark of night. These 2 mice, with intense focus, without a moment's rest, are gnawing at the vine that is his only lifeline. Crunch, crunch. With every bite of their razor-sharp teeth, the thick vine is becoming visibly, measurably thinner. Individual plant fibers are snapping, emitting dangerously stressed, creaking sounds. Above him, the tiger the pursuing past. Below him, the serpents the dreaded future. And this vine, named lifespan, upon which his entire existence depends, is being mercilessly gnawed through by mice, the relentless, alternating passage of day and night. No way back, no hope, no space for cleverness or strategy. This is the metaphor the Buddha painted for us, the most extreme, the most brutally honest depiction of the human existential condition. If you were that traveler, in those final few minutes, as the vine is about to snap and death rushes up to meet you, what would you do? Would you look up and scream desperate curses at the tiger? Why did you chase me? If only I had taken the other path back then. Would you look down and wail in terror at the 4 serpents? I don't want to fall. Being crushed and bitten to pieces, it will be agony beyond bearing. Would you shake the vine frantically, trying to drive away the 2 mice gnawing through time, only to make the vine snap even faster? In your extreme panic, you would spend the last, precious remnants of your life's energy on regret for the past and terror of the future. But the traveler in this dream does something that no one could have anticipated. On this unbelievably terrifying, utterly suffocating cliff face, the traveler suddenly notices a very faint, very peculiar fragrance. It is a sweet, mellow, rich scent, blending the essences of 100 flowers. It cuts through the tiger's putrid breath and the abyss's chilling cold. With difficulty, the traveler turns his head. and looks at the cliff face beside him. In a crack in the rock, barely half a foot from his face, there is a wild honeycomb, perhaps jostled by the vibrations of his fall moments before. The honeycomb has shifted slightly, and there, in this landscape of absolute, all-encompassing doom, in this high-contrast darkness and deathly stillness, a single drop of honey, incredibly slow, incredibly pure, radiating the dark, golden glow, slowly, so slowly, drips from the edge of the honeycomb. In this one instant, the traveler's perceived world undergoes a strange and wondrous qualitative shift. The roar of the tiger fades into the distance. The hiss of the serpents vanishes. The gnawing sound of the mice is completely blocked out. The traveler's entire universe instantly collapses, imploding down to this one single drop of dark gold honey. In its slow, graceful descent, he does not hesitate. He does not think about what will happen in a few minutes. In the most natural way, he tilts his head back ever so slightly, extends his tongue, and with exquisite precision, catches that single, falling drop of honey. The instant the honey touches the tip of his tongue, it dissolves into an incredibly rich, incredibly sweet, floral nectar that explodes across his palate. It is a sweetness so pure, untainted by any trace of fear or scattered thought. It glides over his taste buds, slides down his parched throat, and soothes every fiber of his unbearably taut nerves. The traveler hangs there, in Mitra, and closes his eyes. Above him, the tiger. Below him, the venomous serpent. In his hands, the vine about to snap. Yet, in this very moment, a smile blossomed across his face. A smile of utter, profound contentment, of absolute peace, from the depths of his heart. With the tenderest, gentlest sigh, he murmurs, "Ah, how sweet it is. Just this 1 second. Just this one drop of honey. In this absolute, present moment, there is no past, there is no future, no regret, no fear." He has severed the long, flowing river of time. In the cracks and crevices of a life and death precipice, he has stolen an eternal, perfect universe. Now, bring your awareness, very slowly, back from that heart-stopping, black cliff face. Bring it back into your bedroom. Are you not, too, suspended upon that very same cliff? The tiger, named the past, is roaring in your mind. Mistakes you once made, opportunities you lost, relationships that failed. Those were venomous serpents, named the future in the Buddhist teachings. They represent birth, aging, sickness, and death. The four inescapable fears are coiled at the bottom of the abyss, their dead eyes fixed on you, waiting for you to lose your health, your wealth, and that clock ticking on your wall. Is it not those two mice, one white and one black, relentlessly gnawing away at the vine of your remaining life? Every single day, you are caught in this immense temporal vice, trapped in a state of perpetual dread. You are depressed by yesterday. You are anxious about tomorrow. You pour all of your life force into battling a past that is already dead, and a future that has not even been born yet. But you have forgotten one thing. You have forgotten to taste the drop of honey hanging right before your face. In this very moment, for the modern mind, the phrase "live in the present" has been spoken so often it has become a hollow, meaningless cliché. But here, in this absolutely private auditory space, I am going to guide you through an extremely deep, physical severing of time. This is not a slogan. This is a genuine rewiring of the neural pathways. Please, keep your eyes closed. Take all the attention you have scattered across yesterday and tomorrow. and with a fierce, unapologetic ruthlessness, call it all back. Right now, gather it into your mouth. Yes, your mouth. Feel the presence of your tongue. During the day, your tongue was busy speaking, busy tasting all manner of stimulating flavors, busy swallowing. But now, let it rest, utterly soft, utterly without purpose. On the floor of your mouth, take a very deep breath in. As you inhale, touch the tip of your tongue, ever so lightly, to the roof of your palate. Feel the temperature inside your mouth. Feel the subtle, moist sensation of your own saliva. Do not think about where this breath is coming from. Do not think about what you will have to face when you wake tomorrow morning. Your entire world, right now, is this single, tiny point of contact between your tongue and your palate. If you feel your thoughts beginning, involuntarily, to slide towards the future, silently, inside, shout stop. Imagine you are holding an incredibly sharp katana, gleaming with a cold, brilliant light. Now, as you release an incredibly slow, incredibly drawn-out exhale, imagine that, with a single, decisive stroke, you sever the gray, shadowy timeline connecting you to the past. The you of the past. All the past humiliations and past glories, under this single blade sweep, are utterly reduced to dust and ash. Breathe in again. Exhale. Teacher. Swing the blade once more, and sever the black, shadowy timeline connecting you to the future. All future worries, all future disasters and expectations, under this single blade sweep, dissolve into infinite, empty space. You are going nowhere now. You are right here. You are that traveler, suspended in Hydra. And you are pouring your entire heart and soul into savoring this one single, incredibly tiny, yet incredibly real second. Shift your attention now to your skin. Feel the duvet that is covering your body. Don't just know that it's there. Use your exquisitely sharp sense of touch to caress it. Feel the weight of the duvet, how it presses gently down on your chest. Feel the pure cotton fibers of the cover, and the subtle, warm friction where it meets the skin of your hands. The sensation of this duvet is your single drop of honey. Right here. Right now. It is real. It is here. It does not belong to yesterday. It does not belong to tomorrow. It only exists in this one moment. As you feel it, tell yourself tomorrow, I may lose everything. Tomorrow, I may fall into the abyss. But in this very moment, right here, I am covered by a warm blanket. My body is safe. Ah, how sweet it is. Let's deepen this anchoring. We must let the power of this present moment seep into the very marrow of your bones. Bring your awareness down to your heart. Listen to its steady, rhythmic beating inside your chest. Every single heartbeat is an evening bell, rung by the universe just for you, marking this very moment. Breathe in deeply, letting the fresh oxygen enter your lungs, enter your bloodstream. Feel this current of life, giving warmth being pumped by your heart, flowing out, reaching every limb, every bone in your body. In this intensely focused, deep breath, you taste an incredibly powerful, palpable sense of being alive. Can those harms of the past buy you in this second? No. Can those disasters of the future steal your breath away in this second? No. When you cut your life into a string of absolutely independent, present moments, you will discover that fear cannot survive in the present. Fear only exists in the imagination of the future. Regret only exists in the recollection of the past. But in the pure, undiluted present, there is only here, Only now. Only the moisture on your tongue. Only the warmth of the blanket. Only the beating of your heart. In the absolute present, you are, and always have been, safe. You are, and always have been, deeply, completely abundant. Your body now feels immensely heavy, as if it has become a fortress cast from black iron. Outside the walls of your fortress, the river of time rages and roars, carrying the panic and anxieties of countless souls, hurtling towards death. But inside your fortress, there is no passage of time. You have anchored yourself at an eternal, still point. Your breath has become unprecedentedly slow. In a single minute, you may only need to breathe 2 or 3 times. On this immensely stretched out scale of time, you savor every last drop of honey as it falls. And you believe you have found the ultimate path to freedom. You believe that as long as you cling fiercely to this present moment, as long as you keep tasting this honey, you can find eternal peace on this solitary island of time. But as you focus so intently on savoring this drop of honey, as you think, I have finally arrived in the present moment. Who is this I? Who is tasting the honey? If the past has been severed, if the future is of no concern, and if even this drop of honey in the present will vanish into nothingness the very next second after it touches your tongue, then this I who has been crying out, I am in pain, I am free. I must live in the now. Where, exactly, does it exist? When you dig deep within, trying to grasp the solid entity of this I, are you horrified to discover that there is nothing there but a terrifying, empty, blank space, that the self you have sworn to defend, that soul, does not exist at all? When you dig deep within, trying to grasp that I who is tasting the honey, who is feeling the pain, who is desperately trying to live in the present, do you discover, with a jolt of terror, that there is only an incredibly frightening, vast, empty blankness? Please, do not open your eyes because of this sudden sensation of weightlessness. Instead, let your body sink even deeper into the absolute safety of this dark room. In this profoundly soft, low-key lighting, we are going to face the deepest, most terrifying black hole in the human psyche. For as long as you can remember, you have been utterly convinced that you exist. You have a name, a job, a string of social identity numbers. You have a past filled with painful memories you'd rather not mention, and a collection of glorious moments you take pride in. You have stitched these things together, like a patchwork robe, wrapping them tightly around your soul, and then pointed to this heavy outer garment and said, look, this is me. On the social battlefields of the day, when someone questions your work capability, you feel I have been insulted. When your partner ignores your needs, you feel I have been wounded. All your anger, all your grievances, all your internal friction, it is all in service of protecting this sacred, inviolable I. You are like an utterly exhausted general, guarding a city wall, day and night firing arrows at all the approaching rumors and slanders, trying desperately to defend this fortress named self. But in the silent stillness of this deep night, when you have finally removed that patchwork robe, when you walk into the deepest chamber of the fortress you have sworn to defend, trying to find the king who needs all this protection, what do you find? Your name is nothing more than a sound symbol pasted onto you by others. Change country, change language, and it loses all meaning. That is not you. Your career and status are just a temporary social contract, revocable at any time. If the company goes bankrupt, or you retire, it vanishes like smoke. That is not you, even your memories. Those pains and joys you believed formed the very bedrock of your identity, are nothing but a collection of incredibly faint bioelectric signals firing in the hippocampus of your brain. If you grow old and your memories fade, will you cease to exist when, like peeling an onion, you strip away these external labels, memories, emotions, and even the boundary of your physical body? Layer by layer, with each layer removed, you feel a sharp, piercing sting because you are terrified. You fear that if you strip everything away, all that will remain is an endless, boundless nothingness. This mind that cries out every day, I am so tired. I am so anxious. Where exactly is it hiding? Carrying this bone-chilling sense of emptiness. Let us roll the film of time back 1,500 years to a night of bitter cold. The night of howling snow. It is a high-contrast aesthetic of extreme cold. There is no color between heaven and earth. Only the blinding, harsh white of the frozen snow and the profoundly deep, all-devouring black of the night sky. The north wind howls like a blade of sharpened ice, screaming as it tears through the entirety of Mount Song. In the heart of Mount Song, before a dark, shadowed cave, stands a monk, almost completely buried by the blizzard. His name is Shen Guang, who would later become Master Huaik. Shen Guang is no ordinary monk. Before coming here, he was already a great scholar. Renowned throughout the land, he had read every scripture the world had to offer. He held a position of immense prestige, and countless people bowed to him in deep reverence. But he gave it all up on this night of brutal, unforgiving wind and snow. He stands, like a statue carved from ice, silently outside the cave, because he is in agony. Despite possessing everything the secular world defines as success, the anxious, doubt-filled self in his mind burns within him like a venomous, unquenchable fire, consuming his nerves day and night. The more he reads, the more he contemplates, the larger and more bloated that I becomes, and the more turbulent the waves inside him grow. He cannot sleep. Night after night, he feels his mind as a cauldron of boiling water, unable to find even a single second of peace. And deep inside this dark, frozen cave, facing a rough, black stone wall, sits an old, foreign monk from India, his legs crossed in meditation. Bodhi Dharma. The great master, Bodhi Dharma, has been sitting in this cave, facing this stone wall, for 9 full years. For 9 years, he has not spoken a single word. He has not moved a muscle. His breath is so incredibly faint that even the dust settling on his shoulders is not disturbed. He radiates an absolute, terrifying stillness, so powerful that even this raging blizzard seems to bow before it. Shen Huang stands outside the cave in the heavy snow for an entire night. The snowdrifts rise past his knees, freezing the blood in his veins. His body endures the most extreme, brutal cold. But what torments him even more is the anxiety and emptiness inside, like 10,000 ants gnawing at his bones. Finally, as the first faint, bleak, gray light of dawn tears through the night sky, Shen Guang can no longer bear the torture. To demonstrate the absolute, uncompromising resolution of his quest for the way, to sever this illusory, suffering-ridden self, Shen Guang does something incredibly drastic, incredibly definitive. He draws his precept knife. With one swift, clean stroke, click, he cuts off his own left arm. In the spiritual sense, this is the ultimate metaphor for cutting off all external attachments. Bright red blood gushes from the wound, spraying onto the stark white snow, creating a splatter of devastating, high-contrast crimson. The searing, shocking pain nearly makes Shen Guang black out, but he grits his teeth, dragging his broken, mangled body. He stumbles and falls at the entrance to Bodhidharma's cave, a cry of utter despair. The raw agony rips from his throat. Disciple's mind has no peace. My heart is in too much pain, too much turmoil, too scattered. I beg the patriarch to pacify my mind for me. This desperate, heart-addicting roar echoes through the frozen cave. Slowly, with the immense deliberation of a mountain that has slept for 1,000 millennia finally beginning to stir, Bodhidharma ends his 9-year vigil of facing the wall. He turns around, his eyes, deeply profound, seeming to penetrate the entire cosmos, gaze quietly at Zhuangzi, who is kneeling in a pool of his own blood, trembling uncontrollably. Bodhidharma does not move to bandage Zhuangzi's wound. He does not offer any gentle words of Dharma to soothe his suffering. In this brutal, utterly real moment between life and death, Bodhidharma simply speaks a few words. His voice utterly flat, utterly cold, yet carrying an oath-shattering, irresistible force. Bring me your mind, and I will pacify it. Bring out that mind of yours and hand it to me. I will settle it for you. This sentence strikes like a bolt of the most searingly intense lightning, instantly splitting open all the chaos in Zhuangzi's mind. Zhuangzi freezes. He forgets the excruciating pain of his severed arm. He forgets the raging blizzard around him. He kneels there, stunned, in the snow, and begins to search. Inwardly, he closes his eyes and, within the vast, deep ocean of his own consciousness, begins desperately seeking that mind that has caused him so much suffering. He tries to find the solid entity of anxiety, but the moment his awareness touches the anxiety, it dissolves like a wisp of fog with no warmth, no substance. He tries to find the solid entity of fear, but fear is just a pattern of muscular tension and an accelerated heartbeat. He cannot find the source that can be brought out. He searches for that self that feels I have been harmed, I am in so much pain, that he searches every corner of memory, every inch of his body, and to his utter shock, he discovers there is nothing there. There is absolutely no solid, graspable thing that can be called a mind. All the anxiety, all the suffering, all the it is nothing but a string of thoughts, arising and passing away like the wind. They have no weight, no value, no substance. The only reason they seemed so terrifying is because he himself had endowed these thoughts with an immense, illusory power. In this agonizingly long, deathly still process of inner scrutiny, Zhuangzi's breath slowly steadies. The pain and spasm on his face are replaced by a look of ultimate, shocking, luminous emptiness. The blizzard still howls outside, but the storm within his world, in this one instant, comes to a complete, absolute halt. After an unknowable length of time, Zhuangzi slowly opens his eyes. His gaze has become incredibly clear, incredibly deep. He looks at Bodhidharma, and in a voice that is barely a whisper, yet carrying an immovable, absolute certainty, he says, I have searched for this mind, and it is utterly unfindable. Bodhidharma looks at him, a faint, slight nod. A smile of the most profound, far-reaching depth traces the corner of his lips. I have already completely pacified it for you. Since it cannot be found, then I have already settled it. Just these two short exchanges, and in them, the greatest, most powerful transmission of energy in the history of Zen is complete. Now, bring your awareness back from that frozen, snow-covered mountain. Let it settle back down, here, into your warm bed. In modern psychology and neuroscience, This profoundly advanced experience of Zen meditation is known as the dissolution of self-boundaries. The reason you have been so unbearably tired is because you have fallen for the brain's trick. To ensure your survival in the harsh, primitive world, your brain fabricated an entity called me. And to protect this fabricated entity, you must remain constantly vigilant. You must fight for resources. You must counterattack any possible insult. But Bodhidharma's wisdom tells you this: the I that you are so desperately protecting is a ghost. When someone at work slanders you with malicious intent, they are shooting a sharp, poisoned arrow. You feel pain because you have imagined a target on your chest, named self, and that target has caught the arrow, dead center. But if, like Shenguang, you search within, you will discover that the target does not exist. Since there is no target, what can that arrow possibly hit? It will simply pass through a vast, empty, boundless shadow and fall silently to the ground. Emptiness cannot be pierced. An ocean with no boundaries cannot be stained by a single drop of ink. Your greatest suffering has never been the attacks from the outside world. It has been that you have been standing guard, day and night, over an illusion that does not even exist. Let us now, right here in this bed, do an extremely deep practice of releasing the illusion of self. I am going to guide you to experience, directly, what it truly means to be utterly unfindable. Please, bring your attention, with laser-like precision, to the place in your body that feels the tightest. Maybe it is the space between your brows. Maybe it is your throat. Maybe it is your heart. This is the most fortified stronghold of your self-defense mechanism. Breathe in deeply, and imagine you are gathering all of your conscious awareness into this single point. Now, as you slowly exhale, Dicha, ask yourself the ultimate question, silently, inwardly: this I that feels so tight, where is it? Do not answer with logic. Do not think of your name, your identity. Just use spew, raw perception, to look at that tightness. As you gaze, unwarvingly, at that tightness, you will notice a very strange and wonderful physical phenomenon. That spot of tension, or anxiety, which previously felt as solid as rock under your steady gaze, begins to blur. It begins to diffuse. It is no longer a solid mass. It has become a faint, fleeting electrical current, a slight change in temperature, a wisp of moving air. Breathe in deeply again, and expand your awareness to encompass your entire torso. Exhale. Dicha, ask yourself this: I, lying in the bed, what shape is it? Imagine the boundaries of your body, those edges defined by your skin beginning, in this profoundly dim, low-key light, to dissolve. Bit by bit, your fingertips dissolve, your legs dissolve, your torso dissolves. The separation between you and the mattress beneath you, between you and the air around you, between you and the entire night, simply fades away. You are no longer a solitary, anxious individual, trapped up and confined in a bag of skin. You have become the very shadows in this room. You have become the sound of the wind outside the window. You have become the boundless, endless stillness itself. In this state of vast expansion, of profound dissolution, you taste an absolute safety you have never known before. Because when you do not exist as a separate entity, there is nothing that can be lost, no dignity that can be trampled, no future to be anxious about. That voice that was always chattering, always pushing you to prove yourself, in this immense, empty void, has lost its echo chamber, has no choice but to fall. Exhausted lie. Silent. They have finally found the most ultimate form of rest. They great. Deep rest so profound that even the one who rests has dissolved. Your breath is barely perceptible now. Your heartbeat is as calm and still as a 1,000-year-old well. You are suspended in a universe without boundaries, without weight, without any labels. And you feel, if only you could keep sleeping like this. Surrender. How wonderful that would be. But the ultimate attainment of Zen has never been about becoming an unfeeling block of wood. Nor is it about hiding forever in the abyss of emptiness, escaping from reality. When you have, in this absolute void, laid down all your defenses, dissolved all your fixations, when you are no longer held hostage by that false, illusory self. Magnificent, pure, boundless, primal lifeless energy imprisoned for 1,000,000 neons will awaken, thunderously, upon the ruins, when this boundless, oceanic energy, free of all boundaries, opens its eyes once more, when you must carry the state of no self back into that incredibly noisy, calculating, competitive, modern arena. How do you, without uttering a single word, command the entire space? How do you, in this mad world, embody the ultimate form of silence? When you have, in this absolute void, completely removed the heavy armor named self, when you discover that the king you were so desperately shielding was nothing but a non-existent ghost, you finally attain a freedom that is immensely vast, unborn and undying. But listen to the sounds outside the window. In this high contrast, low-kilit, auditory dark room, the sound of wind and rain seems to be fading away. In its place comes the very distant, white noise of the human world. It is the muffled rumble of tires rolling over asphalt on a distant road. It is the sharp, metallic screech of the first morning train pulling into the station. It is the very faint murmur of a morning news broadcast from a television in the next room. Dawn is approaching. You cannot hide forever in this boundaryless dark night. When the sun rises, when you push open that locked door, you will, inevitably, be swept back into the modern arena, brimming with fame, profit, calculation, competition, and misunderstanding. You will face your boss's KPIs. You will face the relentless rat race with your colleagues. You will face the endless bombardment of messages on your social media apps. When you walk back into that incredibly noisy, incredibly frenzied sea of humanity in the state of no self, this transparent, utterly unguarded state, how will you avoid being swallowed by the torrent? When everyone around you is hoarsely screaming to sell themselves, to prove themselves, how do you, without uttering a single word, command the entire space? How do you, in that mad world, demonstrate the ultimate form of silence? Please, keep your eyes closed. Let your breath remain at that deep, oceanic frequency, where you need only 2 or 3 breaths a minute. Breathe in deeply. Feel that although your body has reformed its outline, this physical shell is no longer filled with that defensive, fearful self. Instead, it is filled with an immensely full, vast, empty space. Exhale slowly. Beicha, carrying the state of immense, full emptiness. Let us roll the film of time back 2,500 years to Vulture Peak. In ancient India, we are going to witness one of the greatest, most powerful, and most silent transmissions of energy in all of human history. It is a grand, magnificent Dharma assembly, Vulture Peak is densely packed with tens of thousands of devotees, kings, scholars, and master debaters from all the great philosophical schools. The air is thick with the intense fragrance of aloeswood incense, and the sweltering heat and body odor rising from the massive gathering. The sun blazes down fiercely, glinting off magnificent canopies and golden ritual implements. The atmosphere is electric, fervent, brimming with restless anticipation. Everyone cranes their necks, eyes wide, fixed intently on the man seated upon the Dharma throne, the Buddha. They have come carrying thousands of incredibly tricky, immensely complex questions. They want to hear the Buddha use his sublime, exquisite logic to refute the non-Buddhist schools. They want to hear him expound upon the origin of the universe, the ultimate meaning of life. They have even prepared paper and brushes, ready to record. The very moment the Buddha opens his mouth, the words of truth destined to change the world, in everyone's understanding. The highest wisdom must surely consist of the most magnificent rhetoric, the most rigorous logic, the most earth-shattering volume. They're all waiting for a feast of sound and intellect. The noise of the crowd, the whispers and murmurs, converge into a massive, deafening, suffocating wave of sound. Finally, the Buddha slowly raises his head. Under the gaze of over 10,000 pairs of eyes filled with desire and anxiety, the Buddha does not reach for the sutras on the table beside him. He does not strike the Dharma drum nearby. With a movement of utter steadiness, utter slowness, he extends his hand and, from a Brahmin devotee standing nearby, takes a single, exquisitely delicate, golden pele flower, radiating a faint, golden light. Then, right there, on the Dharma seat, before the staring eyes of 10,000 people, the Buddha gently, raises the flower, holding it before his chest. No opening statement, no sutra lecture, not a single word of teaching. The Buddha simply holds the flower. His expression is one of profound serenity. His eyes, deep and far-reaching, slowly sweep across the dark, vast sea of humanity before him. He maintains this utterly simple gesture. In complete silence, 1 second passes, 1 minute passes, 10 minutes pass. The Dharma assembly plunges into an incredibly strange, incredibly awkward, deathly stillness. The scholars who were prepared to receive the truth, the anticipation on their faces slowly morphs into bafflement, and then into agitation and anger. They begin murmuring to each other. What is the Buddha doing? Why isn't he speaking? Has he not prepared anything? What can a single flower possibly mean? The brains of those tens of thousands of people are like 10,000 overclocked engines, frantically analyzing, extrapolating, trying to use logic to crack this wordless riddle. The more they think, the more turbulent the waves inside them become. The more they try to extract some knowledge from the Buddha's silence, the more they feel a profound sense of lack and confusion. Amidst this immense wave of anxiety and incomprehension, the Buddha still holds the flower, unmoving. His silence is like a vast, bottomless ocean. No matter how the people below clamor and speculate, they cannot stir even the faintest ripple on its surface. In this agonizingly long, almost suffocating standoff, in the furthest, most hidden corner of the crowd, there is a venerable elder named Yape. Yape looks at the Buddha upon the Dharma seat. He looks at that utterly ordinary, yet utterly perfect, golden pele flower. He does not try to count its petals. He does not analyze the Buddha's intention. He does not attempt to translate this image into any language. He simply, utterly, thoroughly lets go of all the defenses and the thirst for knowledge within his mind. He allows his own inner void to receive, in the most natural, most complete way, the silent energy radiating from the Buddha. In that single instant, within Ma Hekasyape's mind, a gentle, yet brilliant flash of lightning illuminates everything. He understands. Language is always built on division. The moment you say right, you have created wrong. The moment you say I, you have created you. Within that narrow, limited logic of language, people are forever debating, forever proving, forever creating opposition. But this flower, the Buddha holds, this absolute silence, is the highest truth of the universe. It does not need to be proven. It simply is, in perfect peace. Just like this flower. It does not bloom to please anyone. It does not exist to prove anything. It is simply a flower. It is, in itself, completeness. Ma Hekasyape looks at the Buddha. On his weathered, wind-beaten face, the deep furrows of tension carved by years of harsh ascetic practice. Very slowly, very gently, soften and unfold. He does not prostrate. He does not cheer. He does not utter a single word of praise. Hekasyape simply looks at the Buddha. The corner of his mouth lifts, ever so slightly, with the most natural, the most knowing heart connection. He breaks into a smile in the midst of the confusion and noise of 10,000 people. Only this one smile. The Buddha sees Ma Hekasyape's smile, and he, too, smiles. With a movement of profound serenity, the Buddha sits down the Utpali flower. He addresses Ma Hekasyape and speaks the words that proclaim the birth of Zen. The words that have echoed like thunder through the ages. I possess the true Dharma I, the marvelous mind of Nirvana, the true form of the formless, the subtle Dharma gate, not established upon words or letters, a special transmission outside the teachings. I now entrust it to Ma Hekasyape, the highest energy, the deepest wisdom, transmitted eternally. In this utterly silent holding of a flower, and breaking into a smile, no translation of words was ever needed, no debate of logic, because the greatest teaching is to render the very act of teaching unnecessary. Now, bring your awareness back from that golden light-drenched vulture peak. Bring it back, very slowly, very steadily. Bring it back to this bed where you are lying. Back into this physical body, perhaps slightly weary from chronic anxiety. This is the ultimate answer we have been journeying towards through this entire, long, auditory voyage. When you push open the door tomorrow and walk into that meeting room filled with prejudice and noise, when you face those competitors with their assessing, scrutinizing eyes, when you face someone who tries to provoke you with sharp, unkind words, hoping to mask their own inner poverty, you do not need to search your vocabulary. You do not need to prepare any sharp retort. You do not need to draw the samurai sword in your heart. All you need to do, in your heart, with a steadiness that is absolute, is to raise a single flower. That flower is your incredibly long, gentle breath. That flower is your deeply relaxed jaw. That flower is the compassionate, knowing gaze in your eyes, seeing through the empty-bone nature of the other person. When someone, like that samurai swinging his sword in the canyon, pours their emotions out at you with crazed fury. When someone, like those wild monkeys scrambling to scoop the moon from the deep pool, tries to prove their sense of superiority to you, you simply need to be like the Buddha. Watch them in stillness, No defense. No rebuttal. No appeasement. Your absolute silence will first strike them with confusion, and then with a creeping, rising panic, because they will discover that all their aggressive words seem to be falling into a boundless, bottomless abyss. They cannot provoke you. They cannot control you. Your silence will become a gravitational field of terrifying power, utterly crushing their false, fragile defenses, and in the end, the world, because of your not speaking a single word, will bow before you. Now, let us perform the final, deeply profound body scan and grounding of this long, long journey. We are going to build for you an eternal, never-drying mode of energy, capable of withstanding all the clamor of the world. Please, let your awareness gently, tenderly blanket your entire body, from the tips of your toes to the very crown of your head. Breathe in deeply. Imagine that the energy from these 12 stories has transformed into 12 streams of incredibly warm, smooth, dark golden light following your breath. They are flowing into your meridians, your energy channels, your very being. Here. Imagine that Zen Master Haku, and reviled by the entire village, is now standing beside your left shoulder. When, tomorrow, you face an unjust misunderstanding, when you feel that irresistible urge to defend yourself, to explain desperately, let him whisper softly into your ear, "Is that so?" And then, set down that heavy burden. Let innocence prove its own innocence. Breathe in again. Exhale. Deja. Imagine that Master Tanzan, who set the woman down on the riverbank, is sitting beside your right shoulder. When, in the deep night, you start spiraling into frantic rumination over the conflict of the day, let him place that rough, one hand on your shoulder and ask you, "I set her down long ago. Why are you still carrying her?" And then, in your heart, with an absolute, clean cut, sever that vine named the past. Breathe in. Exhale. Icha. Feel your heart. Shen Guang, who searched for himself in the howling blizzard and found nothing, is sitting, cross-legged, in the very chamber of your heart, when a single dismissive glance from someone else makes you feel your dignity is wounded. Look inwards. Take a single glance. Look at that target. That doesn't exist. Tell yourself there is no edge beyond, only infinite, empty space that can embrace everything. In this very slow, very deep breathing, every bone in your body, every muscle, is being recast, reforged by this ancient wisdom. You are no longer that leaking vessel. You have built for yourself a towering, immensely strong dam of silence. Now, I am going to plant one final, tiny, yet incredibly powerful, physical anchor deep within your subconscious. Please, bring the thumb and forefinger of your right hand together, and let them touch with the slightest, gentlest pressure. Feel the incredibly real, warm sensation of the skin of your two fingers meeting. Is your switch. From this day forward, no matter where you are, no matter what raging accusation you face, what awkward silence engulfs you, what moment makes you want to launch into a frantic monologue to prove yourself, the moment you gently press these two fingers together, deep within your mind, a single word will resonate, with absolute clarity, with absolute power. Stop, and with that word, in 0.1 seconds, you will instantly shut down all the channels through which your energy leaks outwards. Your tongue will sink to rest behind your lower teeth. Your gaze will grow deep and profound, and in the very heart of the most chaotic, noisy crowd, you will instantly return to this deeply quiet, profoundly safe abyss of the dark night. This is your immeasurable Dharma gate. The night has deepened to its utmost limit. The light in the room has dimmed to a point beyond which it can't in no further. Even the ticking of the wall clock in this thick, rich stillness is gradually melting, vanishing. There is nothing left that you need to put down now, because your two hands were already empty from the very beginning. There is nothing left you need to prove, because you are, yourself, that perfectly full, luminous moon, that brain, so utterly exhausted from overthinking, can finally, cease its suffocating, relentless churning. The analyzing stops. The judging stops. The desperate need to prove yourself stops completely. Your breath is now incredibly light, incredibly long. It is no longer you who is breathing, but the entire universe breathing in the gentlest rhythm through your body. The voice becomes extremely low, extremely slow, barely more than a whisper. Do not think of those ancient stories anymore. Do not think of how to deal with tomorrow's Ronin swordsman anymore. Even this final, lingering trace of voice, you may let go of it now. In this boundless, vast stillness that you have utterly, completely mastered, thought ceases. Mind rests, only peace dwells eternally. Good night, or good morning. May you, in this unshakable, inviolable silence, find the deepest of descents